Pirates starting from the strongest swordsman. Chapter 201-250. Chapter 201. Chapter 130. Subtly avoid. All the indigenous people who mistakenly thought that their sacred relic was stolen by Angeli, all of them opened their mouths like crazy and howled loudly, revealing their fierce appearance as savages, and ran hard with their legs out. Looks a little scary and a little funny. Not only that, but each of these indigenous people also has a simple tool in their hands. I often use these tools to hunt. It can be said to be very hard. If I hit Angeli with the things in my hand, it will be enough for him. Chasing after them, and a group of them followed. It seems that this thing is very important to them, but even so, I have to take it away. I'm really sorry, and they're gone. This thing can't be the same. Angeli was panting and muttering in a low voice. After running for a long time, Angeli was so tired that she could barely hold it, so she stopped and I wanted to touch my hands. After staying on my knees for a second or two, I started again. Run quickly. Don't these savages get tired? After so long, I can't see them collapse. If I compare my physical strength with them, I will definitely not have the upper hand. Realizing this, Angeli looked a little desperate. At this time, the place he was in was an empty land, and there was nothing to hide for 4 weeks. In desperation, he could only try to deal with these indigenous people and negotiate. I only saw Angeli standing there abruptly. His legs and feet trembled a little, and then his hands made a stop motion, loudly speaking to a group of vicious natives who were chasing him in front of him. Dude, stop chasing. What misunderstandings can't be solved? Why do you have to be rough? It seems uncivilized at all. I think after running for so long, we are all tired. If that's the case, don't kid yourself. There's nothing wrong with sitting down and resting. But only seeing those natives, he still ran hard, seeing the natives getting closer and closer, or he began to realize that this method was not working at all, and he had no choice but to give up. It's really bad. It seems that these animal-like guys can't understand human language at all. Since they are so animal-like, maybe they can be quoted as food to go to another place and say that Angeli is looking for food from himself. The thing, sure enough, the car must have a way to the front of the mountain. He found that there was actually a piece of meat on his body, so he gritted his teeth and swayed the only meat on the body in front of the indigenous people, as if to let them see his hand. What to eat? Ow! The Aborigines were squeaking, not knowing what they were talking about, but their eyes were really focused on where the meat was going. Some obstacles. Never thought that there is still a haystack here. It seems that God doesn't want me to die at this age. It can be regarded as a way to survive. Angeli quickly hid. All the natives were very confused when they saw that the target had disappeared. Their heads looked around like a wavy drum, searching for no purpose. Angeli's heart was also thumping, and he didn't even dare to take a peek. The outstanding person saw that he couldn't find Angeli, so he walked away in a loss, stopped, and after seeing the Aborigines gone, he let out a long sigh and continued to look for others. Chapter 131. Drive away the pirates. Satisfied patted his chest, suddenly felt that he was favored by the god of luck. Although he was able to escape from the mouths of the Aborigines, he was considered to be a group of people living in this world who had no brains and could only rely on them. The guy who lives with strength, how can it be insulting my IQ compared to this Homo sapiens, who is just like Kurozumi? Bah, Angeli is no longer the same as before, so afraid of those indigenous people, but they disliked them for being too clumsy. Although they had already embarked on a journey to find other people, the difficulty at this time was still nowhere, and it could only be counted where they went. Look there seems to be a person lying there who seems to be in a coma. The weak Zoro was lying on a dilapidated boat, facing the danger of being suddenly washed up and eaten by the ferocious prey under the sea, but someone on the boat saw Zoro lying there, and they moved towards Zoro. Driving in the same direction as expected, I don't know if he is still angry or not. It wasn't a close look, and I couldn't feel the sound of Zoro's breathing. As for the people on that boat, seeing Zoro lying down, I doubted whether he had passed away. However, the good-hearted members did not stop to find out because of their ideas. They slowly approached Zoro and fished Zoro from the dilapidated boat. The traveler seems to be still breathing, so let him stay on our ship for a while, and when he wakes up, let him go where he wants to go. Everyone agreed, and the crew kindly stroked Zoro's brow to see if he had a fever. After finding that there was nothing unusual, they carried Zoro to a more comfortable bed. Where am I? Zoro opened his eyes dimly, and he still felt a little dizzy in the vagueness. Seeing the scene in front of him, there were also several people with unfamiliar faces in front of him. You woke up, we found you at sea, saw you lying there, so we rescued you. Do you feel uncomfortable now? Although there is nothing good in bed to entertain guests, but still it can solve the problem of food and clothing. Zoro felt full of warmth in his heart, so he politely declined. No, there are very few people in the world with kindness like you. Zoro smiled, but something suddenly attacked their ship during the short-lived conversation, and the panicked crew hurried to find out. Not a pirate. The crew urgently reported that when the pirate ship reached a certain distance from their ship, the pirates began to brag and shout the rules loudly. If you don't obey us, then don't blame us for being rude. If everything can be solved by force, we will never use our tongues. Men, wangs, or refreshing, and it's nothing to be squeamish. The words of the pirates are very ugly, not at all restrained, like a strange ship asking for treasure but the crew is still unwilling to obey. HMPH, a pirate with a few pounds and a few tails can actually say such crazy things. Zoro would not stand idly by watching this scene. After all, the crew on this ship was his savior, so he flew to the pirate ship with light effort and sent those pirates away. Taught a lesson. Chapter 132. Zoro took a deep breath. He didn't expect it to be so hard, but now he was a little proud, and at the same time, he had a kind of contempt for those pirates. The pirates have already left, and there will be nothing dangerous now, everyone can rest assured. Speaking, Zoro was about to rest, but he suddenly thought of something, jumped up and so on. Just now I seem to remember that there is a person who has been helping me, and I don't know who that person is. He looks good, not bad, after all that person is a gifted person. Zoro said. Immediately afterwards, Zoro began to look for the figure of the man on the ship, but after searching for a long time, he could not find the man. He knew that he found a silent person in a corner of the ship looking into the distance. Zoro was sure that this person must be the gifted person. Zoro walked towards the person, and then looked at him carefully, but unfortunately he was discovered by the gifted person. May I ask what is the matter with you? I see that you have been wandering around here, and I don't know if you are looking for something or someone. If there is something I can help, you can say it, and I can help. The man said. Zoro looked at him and felt that this person must be of great help to Angeli, so he decided to take him away with him, but it was a question whether he was willing to go with him. 680 inches. I have something to ask for, and I don't know if you can agree. Zoro said. The other party was very puzzled. He didn't know what Zoro said. After all, on this ship, there should be a very small chance to help. If I can help, then I will do my best. Help you? After all, you can get a better gift by helping others, right? Said the other. I saw Zoro showing a very surprised expression, thinking that the person in front of him was the one he was looking for. At the same time, if he could win him over, Angeli would definitely be surprised. I hope you will help us, because these few we are really short of people to help. Said Nozomi Zoro, and then saw the other party's expression of doubt. I don't understand why my help is needed. There are so many people on this ship, but I am one of them. I can't agree. The other party said that he turned around and wanted to leave, but he was held back by Zoro. Zoro was a little helpless and didn't know what to do. If he couldn't convince this talented person, it would definitely not go well in the future. I saw that Zoro was helpless. Shook AGDC head. You are very talented, and I came to you because of this. The rest of the people are also very powerful, but in other respects, you are more talented than those people, so I want you to come help. Zoro explained. But the talented person smiled and said, I don't think so. You can go and find other people. maybe there are people who are more powerful besides me. After all, there are many talented people in this world, where am I missing? Zoro is even more helpless. After all, he is the same as Anjali now. He is not a wanderer, but he is just wandering for a goal. Anjali has worked so hard to find someone. How could he sit idly by and be dumbfounded? Where is it? The person Zoro finally found. He can't give up no matter what, so Zoro believes that there must be a way to take him down. Chapter 133. This person is called Dabalu. Zoro saw that the other party did not speak, and sighed helplessly. Then he applied seriously and said that he really needed your help. With one more person, the strength will be greater. You should also know this. I came to you for nothing else. But in order to be able to contribute more. I saw the man in front of him frowning, wondering if he should help. After all, he didn't know that Zoro came to him without a purpose, and it was definitely not a good thing. Maybe I can think about it, because this is the first time we meet, and we are not familiar with it. If I go with you according to your request, then I don't know what will happen next. Please forgive me. In the end, Zoro had no choice but to tell the man what he needed to accomplish. The other man seemed satisfied after hearing it, because other men would definitely agree to such an exciting thing. I can walk with you, but my talent is only in marksmanship. I don't know if this will be of great help to you. If so, I will be happy to follow you, said the man. Oh yes, my name is Dabalu. Dabalu told his name, then extended his hand in greeting. Zoro looked up and down this man named Dabalu. He was a good young man, but their solution to the problem was not to use guns, although they could also solve the problem. Your marksmanship is very good. Can you show it now? Let me see how your marksmanship is, Zoro said, and then took a step back, only to see Dabalu taking a gun from his pocket, and then a piece of real object not far away sweep away. Yes, accurately focusing on that object, Zoro was dumbfounded. It was the first time he saw such a powerful marksmanship, and he had to admire this man named Dabalu in his heart. Your marksmanship is very good, but do you have another skill besides this talent? Like swordsmanship or something? Zoro asked. After all, he wanted to know how the swordsmanship of the man in front of him was. Dabalu showed a helpless expression. He felt that if he used swordsmanship, he might be forcing him to do this. After all, it was the first time he tried to defeat the enemy with swordsmanship. Or forget it, once my swordsmanship is used, it is also a very weak move. After all, I have been wandering outside and used marksmanship before, so I have practiced such a good achievement, said Dabalu. Zoro said helplessly, in that case, why don't I teach you the basic moves of learning swordsmanship? We will use it in the future. If you lose your gun, you still have a sword on your body, and you can save it for a while. Dabalu nodded, and then Zoro began to teach him some basic moves and methods of using the sword. Dabalu learned very hard at first. After all, it was the first time to touch this thing. Somewhere in the body, it will definitely break blood people. Zoro said that he was the first to see the fastest person to learn the most basic moves of swordsmanship, and now he only needs Dabalu to practice this move repeatedly every day, and it will be foolproof. Chapter 133. This person is called Dabalu. Zoro saw that the other party did not speak, and sighed helplessly. Then he applied seriously and said that he really needed your help. With one more person, the strength will be greater. You should also know this. I came to you for nothing else. But in order to be able to do more, I saw the man in front of him frowning, and he didn't know if he should help. After all, he didn't know that Zoro came to him without a purpose. It's definitely not a good thing. Maybe I can think about it, because this is the first time we meet, and we are not familiar with it. If I go with you according to your request, then I don't know what will happen in the future, please forgive me. In the end, Zoro had no choice but to tell the man what he needed to accomplish. The other man seemed satisfied after hearing it, because other men would definitely agree to such an exciting thing. I can walk with you, but my talent is only in marksmanship. I don't know if this will be of great help to you. If so, I will be happy to follow you, the man said. Oh yes, My name is Debaloo. Debaloo told his name and then extended his hand in greeting. Zoro looked up and down this man named Debaloo. He was a good seed, but their solution to the problem was not to use guns, although they could also solve the problem. Your marksmanship is very good. Can you show it now? Let me see how your marksmanship is, Zoro said, and then took a step back, only to see Debaloo taking a gun from his pocket, and then a piece of real object not far away sweep away. Yes, accurately focusing on that object, Zoro is simply brilliant. It was the first time he saw such a powerful marksmanship, and he couldn't help but admire this guy named Debaloo. Your marksmanship is very good, but do you have another skill besides this talent? Like swordsmanship or something? Zoro asked. After all, he wanted to know what the swordsmanship of the man in front of him was. How? Debaloo showed a helpless expression. He felt that if he used swordsmanship, he might be forcing him to do this. After all, it was the first time he tried to defeat the enemy with swordsmanship. Why don't you forget it? Once my swordsmanship is used, it is a very weak move. After all, I have been wandering outside and used marksmanship before, so I have practiced such a good achievement. Debaloo said. Zoro said helplessly, in that case, why don't I teach you the basic moves of learning swordsmanship? We will use it in the future. If you lose your gun, you still have a sword on your body, and you can save it for a while. Debaloo nodded, and then Zoro began to teach him some basic moves and methods of using the sword. Debaloo learned very hard at first. After all, it was the first time to touch this thing. Somewhere in the body, that would definitely be a bloodbath. What I teach you just needs to be practiced over and over again. After all, it is easy for you to learn things, and you also learn quickly. It's not bad, but it's just a gifted person in my opinion. Zoro said that he was the first person who had ever seen the fastest person to learn the most basic moves of swordsmanship, and now Debaloo only needs to practice this move repeatedly every day, and it will be foolproof. Chapter 134 No Promise. After a while, Zoro told Debaloo some other basic tricks, but Debaloo was still struggling to use it. Zoro didn't know what to do, but a figure of a person suddenly flashed in his mind. That's right, this person is Anjali, and there is no other way to implement it other than to let him come to Debaloo's swordsmanship. If you don't list Aang as a master, he will definitely teach you the swordsmanship of 847 inches. At that time, other people will definitely not be worth mentioning compared to you. I can tell you that he is very powerful, Zoro said. It's just that Debaloo's expression is a little weird. He seems to have a lot of reluctance in his heart. After all, it is a rather ugly thing to ask him to be a teacher. What's more, he is best at marksmanship. Zhang's favorite trick is to be replaced by others. Naturally, I don't want to be embarrassed. I may not be able to promise you. After all, I don't want to be taught by others, not to mention giving up my favorite marksmanship to learn swordsmanship for one thing. This is a bit wrong, isn't it? Debaloo said, and then looked at Zoro, and he didn't know what he was thinking about. Your marksmanship is good, but your swordsmanship is too bad. If you and Anjali study hard, it's definitely not a big problem. Listen to me once, Zoro said slowly, wondering if he could persuade him. I saw Debaloo shook his head, as if he was unwilling to do this. Helpless, Zoro felt a little uncomfortable. In fact, in Debaloo's heart, he did not want to give up his favorite marksmanship. This fact cannot be changed by anyone. He believes that marksmanship has been with him for many years and has long been part of his life. Zoro raised his eyebrows. If he couldn't persuade him, he would have to resort to hard tricks. Zoro was walking on the boat, and Anjali might be looking for someone else in other places, but there is only one person on this boat with such a talent. This man must be brought back to Anjali. Really, why don't we try it out and see who is more powerful, whether it is you who taught yourself the skills of marksmanship and swordsmanship, or the disciples brought out by Anjali who are more powerful. Zoro said, and finally took out his sword, as if he was launching an attack. Debaloo was a little annoyed, and thought it was a bit abrupt, just because of this small matter, and because of the anger in his heart. Debaloo, my heart is about to move, and I also want to go forward to fight. I don't know how to stop this thought. Since I can only choose this, I can just have a good time. Dabaloo thinks that his marksmanship is very good, and no one can match it. After him, this is the first time he has met someone like Zoro, and all he can do now is to go forward and fight. I promise you, let's go, let's have a test, see if Anjali's swordsmanship is good or my marksmanship is good. If I win, then I will choose by myself. Let me go. You win, I will naturally listen to you of. Said Dabaloo. Zoro Vivi frowned, then raised 24 Chi Young, and led Dabaloo to a relatively open place, ready to start the test. At this moment, the surrounding atmosphere is as strong as a gale from nowhere, and I don't know how fierce the next move will be. It's not certain who wins or loses. It's just that the strengths of the two are comparable. A draw, that's nothing to say. Chapter 135 Tricks. Then let's get started. When the time comes, you must count what you say, otherwise you won't be considered a man. Zoro told the other party, then took out his sword and prepared to fight. Dabaloo was not to be outdone, and the two were aggressive, as if something indescribable had really happened. It was just a small thing that caused such a result, and no one would have expected such a thing to happen. I saw that the two of them slowly came up with their most powerful trick, Zoro, and simply jumped and was born. As long as they slashed directly at each other with their swords, not only did they miss the hit, but they also made a gap. I didn't expect that the trick that Anjali taught you in your mouth is just like this. Since it will fail, if you change it and learn the marksmanship, I guarantee that you will be impressed. Dabaloo said, with a bit of disdain in his tone. You are too underestimated. I will definitely change your opinion of me when I use my real strength. Why don't you try your tricks first? See if I can dodge. If I can't dodge, it will prove that my strength is much weaker than yours. Zoro said. This sentence successfully angered Dabaloo, who already had anger in his heart. He didn't understand why the people in front of him were so arrogant. Could it be that their strengths are really comparable? Or the person he said was really powerful? From the beginning of disbelief, to the end, he didn't believe that what Thrawn said was true. Unless Dabaloo really saw how powerful he was, he is impossible to compromise. Looking at my marksmanship, you have seen it before, otherwise how could you say that I am so talented? As for the swordsmanship you taught me, I am not optimistic at all. As soon as the words fell, I saw Deba Road took out his pistol and swept towards Zoro at the fastest speed. Who would have missed the same as Zoro? Not only did he not hit the opponent, but he also threw himself to see. This is what you have. It's very powerful. I think your talents are not things that came out of nothing. You can change your position. If you think about it, you can master two skills. Wouldn't it be gratifying? Once a person can have two moves, it must be the last one. I saw a silver light flashing in front of Dabaloo's eyes. Before he had time to react, he just felt a pain in his arm that was expanding, and he gritted his teeth in pain. That's right, Zoro's trick is Baiyun Lei Ming. Such a powerful attack power can also feel pain even if the person is invulnerable, let alone a thin man. I'm afraid he can't bear this kind of pain. Zoro, seeing the pained look of the other party, the corners of Vivi's mouth couldn't help rising. Dabaloo was helpless. He couldn't bear such an attack. He raised his gun and swept towards 593 directly. This time Zoro did not escape, but endured the pain of the bullets rubbing past his body. The pain is a bit uncomfortable, the hot feeling is flowing through the body, the bullet is too fast, causing the heat generated by friction. I really didn't know you would have such a means. In that case, let's fight to the death and see who wins and who loses. Zoro's voice just fell, and the two continued to start. No one fell to the final result. I didn't expect that the two of them didn't fight to the death, and they didn't decide the winner. You don't have to think about it, they played a draw. Chapter 136 Suddenly enlightened. Although Anjali didn't speak, but looking at the situation in front of him, he knew what was going on in his heart. Just looking at Zoro like this, he felt helplessly. How come this child still hasn't learned some of his own situation? In the end, Zoro slowly felt that he really couldn't hold on anymore. he just pointed at the person on the opposite side, looked at Anjali and said, "Master, what should I do?" Actually, according to Anjali's own thinking, it doesn't seem to be possible at this time. What? I think Zoro is probably okay. But Dabalu's appearance made Anjali feel that it might not be that simple. So he quietly told Zoro, "Use the silver light to kill 13. When Zoro heard this, he seemed to be in a daze, and the original situation disappeared immediately. Immediately, the current situation on the battlefield is indeed surprising, and Subaru is also curious, what is going on here? Suddenly, seeing Anjali beside him, as if he knew what was going on, he just said, "Well, what you said." Yes. Anjali didn't say anything else, just admitted directly that he did it himself. After talking about this matter, Subaru suddenly didn't know what to say, because he knew in an instant that this Anjali was like this, and it was useless to say anything on his own. Anjali didn't say anything, just watching what happened on the field, suddenly didn't know what to say. It stands to reason that Anjali certainly knows about Zoro's progress. How could he, as his master, not even know about this matter? However, the situation of Dabalu really surprised Anjali, and felt that in a short period of time, there was no such effect. But soon, the people on the field were also surprised. Dabalu held his gun, looked at Anjali in disbelief, and just said something about what was going on. It was impossible. To be honest, even now, Dabalu hasn't said anything, and he still can't believe that what he thought was a good thing suddenly became like this. For a time, Dabalu felt that he didn't know what to do. But Zoro was still very calm, and just said, "What you think can't be what you think. There will be a day." This impossible means that he will not lose to Dabalu's, but now, Zoro is just looking at Dabalu, waiting for him to do anything. Outside the field, Spartan looked at Anjali, and suddenly said worriedly, "What the hell is going on here? Don't you just not worry about your little apprentice?" Ange didn't say anything, just watched the situation on the field quietly. If he said he was not worried at all, it would be impossible, but if there was anything else here, then he was actually it is also fine. It's just that now I want to know the most, whether Zoro can or not, and this Dabalu, what is going on in this situation? Time and many questions made Anjali feel that things here are not simple. Chapter 137 The Two Who Refuse to Admit Defeat. Dabalu looked at Zoro like this, and he probably knew what was going on in his heart, but he was also a coquettish girl, so how could things go on like this? So he continued to fight Zoro, but after a few rounds, Dabalu felt that he had a lot of years and felt that it was really difficult. Looking at Anjali and the others, Dabalu seemed to know something, and felt that Anjali must be outside, otherwise this Zoro would not be like this. So he said lightly, "Shameless villain, you can actually do such a thing and let your master guide you. I want to show you how I defeated you." This little Zoro, after hearing this, naturally not to be outdone, he just said, "HMPH, don't think you can do anything, I'll see who 787 is taking care of." After speaking, the two who refused to admit defeat continued to scuffle together. After hearing such words, Subaru knew what was going on in his heart, looked at Anjali in the car and said, "Look at the two of them, what is going on with this? Why is it still like a child? It's actually a quarrel. You say what was going on." Anjali still didn't say anything, just looking at the situation inside them. Subaru knew in his heart, this Anjali, although he said that he was not worried, but if it was really like this, how could he don't worry about your apprentice? Hearing this, Anjali just opened his mouth and said, "No, I'm suddenly Judy Baru, where did Subaru learn from?" He didn't know what to say, just looked at Anjali, helpless. He said, "Why, your apprentice can have a master, and so can others, don't you look at it, isn't it the focus of attention now?" In fact, how could Anjali not know what Subaru means, or that this may also be a problem that he is worried about, because this Dabalu did not use all his abilities at all. But now, what is the situation of Zoro? You know. So, this is what worries me. Seeing this, Zoro only AGF is a confrontation for several months, but one move, he still has the upper hand. Seeing that Zoro directly hit Debaloo to the ground, Debaloo just struggled for a while, but still didn't get up. Looking at this situation, Subaru said happily, "That's great, it's really your apprentice, it's really good." Although there was no expression on Angeli's face, in his heart, he really felt that this matter really made him feel a little more comfortable. At first, I thought things could end like this, but at this moment, Debaloo just suddenly got up, continued to take out a gun, and said, "You think I will admit defeat like this? I tell you, this is completely is not possible. So keep fighting." Seeing this, Subaru quickly said, "Angeli, hurry up and see what's going on here. I'll tell you, if you don't, this kid will lose." Angeli still looked at the situation on the field and didn't say anything. After all, it was like this. If he shot directly, was it really not good? Chapter 138-1. Seeing that Angeli didn't say anything, Subaru also felt anxious, so he said directly, "Since this is the case, you don't care, then I'll go and see what's going on. Therefore, regardless of 372 plus, we must pass." Angeli thought a lot and felt that Zoro was okay, but turned to look at the impulsive Subaru, but didn't know what to say. I just pulled it over to Subaru and said, "What are you doing? You are at this time, and you still want to do something, why don't you come back quickly, Tilda?" This Subaru was also anxious, looking at Angeli like this, and said, "Why don't you go and see, what the hell is going on, what if Zoro loses?" No, Angeli seems to be he knew something, so he said it decisively, but Angeli heard this and felt that it was nothing, but Subaru, who was still looking at something and didn't know what was going on, said, "It's nothing, don't worry." That's it. Since everyone said this, Subaru felt that he didn't have anything to say but said unwillingly, "I don't care, I just see how you will end when the time comes." When it comes to this, I still think that Angeli is really wrong. Do you not believe in Zoro, or do you have any other plans? Angled Subaru didn't know what to say, but asked Zoro, thinking that he might know something. How can it be? Subaru thinks that it seems that there is really no problem in this way. So I just said something embarrassed and said, "No, I didn't mean that." Since there was no such thing, Angeli suddenly remembered, did he have something to do but just said, "In this case, I still have my own business. I haven't finished speaking yet, and the people are no longer here." Subaru looked at Angeli, didn't know what to say for a while. This Angeli's own apprentice was still here, how could he leave so easily? But when Angeli came out, he didn't say anything, just took it back. "The devil fruit I just got was given to the system. 0. Ask for flowers." The system looked at it and told Angeli, "Okay, Master, this is indeed what we need, we can show you what the next task is." Angeli thinks, this system, in addition to the pit man, I feel like I still can't think of anything. So he went back slowly, but saw Subaru looking at him happily. Needless to say, Angeli also knew what was going on, so he opened his mouth and said, "Well, what, Zoro is dead." After listening to this sentence, Subaru just said with a smile, "Well, of course, you don't know, the last look is so beautiful, I don't even know how to win." When Subaru said this, he scratched his head a little embarrassedly. Suddenly, Angeli knew what he meant, and probably felt that he didn't trust Zoro just now. The system task that had just been processed, Angeli looked at the sword manual in his hand, as if he knew something. Chapter 139 False Feelings. Debaloo himself didn't know why after Angeli left, Zoro could still win himself, that is to say, the problem was not with him. Just looking at Zoro like this and thinking about what happened just now, Debaloo felt that he had no reason to say anything. So he can only say something indifferently, "Well, I know, I really lost. Probably this is Debaloo Sanchi, lose, master." But with such a sentence, Angeli also knew that Zoro was very happy now. So he asked, "What's the matter? Do you feel like I'm down now? It's a particularly happy time." Zoro doesn't know what to say. Sure enough, his master is indeed his master, and he really knows what he is talking about. So I just said embarrassedly. I didn't finish talking. I saw Anjali give Zoro something, and said, since I don't think so, then I think I'm still far behind, keep going. After he finished speaking, he continued to go far away. Subaru didn't know what was going on, so he hurried over and said, what the hell is going on? Everyone has won. Look at you, don't encourage them. Andrea didn't say anything, because he knew that what he gave was the best encouragement. Sure enough, Zoro took the things Anjali gave him and looked at it, and he knew what was going on. In this case, it was a sword manual for himself, but it was for himself to study hard. So he said excitedly, Master, thank you. This kind of operation made Subaru not know what was going on, and felt that these two people were in the end. What's going on? It's the same situation. Thank you so much. It seems that I really don't know what's going on. He opened his mouth and said, what is he doing? Yes, this is indeed a question, and Subaru suddenly said, or, Anjali, let him recognize you as a master. Then he looked at Deba. Lu said, how about a boy? In this way, you are not at a loss. What do you think of Yi? Debalu felt that he should have refused, but after thinking about it, he wondered if they would have anything else. So I still feel that if I do better than them, maybe there is something else. He just said, well, I still need to think about this matter. What else do you have to think about? Since you lost, I think it should be like this. Zoro seems to think so too, but just continued to say 43 to Debalu. Anjali didn't say anything, just felt this matter is probably meaningless, but I don't know if they have their own business when they say this. It's just that Debalu looked at them like this and said, well, okay, I see, I agree. To be honest, Anjali felt a little surprised, but still didn't say anything. Chapter 140 Debalu Apprenticeship. Debalu was defeated, so he had to follow Zoro to Anjali. Anjali laughed and said, I have another apprentice. Debalu's face was ashen, and he looked up at the sky. In the sky, a seagull happened to fly past Zoro. Seeing that Debalu didn't speak, he pushed him behind him and reminded him to speak. But Debalu just glanced at Zoro and didn't intend to speak. Zoro whispered to Debalu what happened to you, not that he wanted to. Debalu said it loudly. It surprised Anjali and Zoro. Zoro just wanted to talk, but he didn't know what to think. He stopped talking 06, just smiled. Anjali looked a little disappointed. He also saw the flying seagull above his head, and then flew into the water to find food. He looked at Debalu and felt the atmosphere was a bit awkward. After a while, in order to break the awkward atmosphere, he finally said, Debalu, what you said is not what you mean. Debalu's eyes flashed brightly at this time, and it could be seen that he had made up his mind. He said that I will not be your apprentice. Since I lost, you will disgust me whatever you want to do. Debalu looked like he was going to die. Zoro looked at Debalu, and was a little angry at first. He felt that he was going back on his word, but he was a little admired, so he stopped talking. Although Anjali had expected it, he felt embarrassed after all, and he didn't know what to say for a while. Zoro also felt embarrassed and said, by the way, I just remembered that I have something to do, so I will go first. After that, Zoro turned around and left, pretending to know nothing. Anjali wanted to stop Zoro, but Zoro walked so fast that it was useless to stop him and didn't speak. Debalu didn't know what Anjali meant, and said that although I promised Zoro before, it was against my will, so what do you want to do? Anjali had no choice but to laugh, and he said, since you don't want to, I have nothing to force, I respect your intention. Let's go. When Debalu heard Anjali say this, he almost smiled and said that since this is the case, then I will go first. After Debalu finished speaking, he turned around and was about to leave, but Anjali shouted again. Debalu turned to look at Anjali and asked, what's the matter with you? Anjali stepped forward and said, I hope we can have the opportunity to cooperate and become friends in the future. Debalu smiled happily and said, I like your proposal. Dabalu smiled and said again. I'm leaving. Anjali didn't say anything else, and went back after sending Dabalu away. At night 397, Dabalu came back, and Anjali was also surprised to see Dabalu. Did you ask me for anything? Dabalu said with a smile. That's it, your words this afternoon made me think for a while. What words? If you say there is a chance to cooperate. Anjali didn't speak. Dabalu said again. I thought about it, I think we should cooperate, so I want to bring my little brothers to join your pirate group. Anjali is also very happy to hear it. He promised to let Dabalu's pirate team join. Dabalu was also happy, so he had a banquet with Anjali and others, and then talked about some things about the distribution of benefits. Chapter 141 Swordsmanship Manual. Anjali woke up with a headache because he drank a little too much alcohol the night before, so he went out to relax. Not too far away, he saw Subaru foolishly jumping to the distance, and Anjali shouted, Subaru, wait a minute. Subaru heard the voice and turned around and saw that it was Anjali, so he came over and asked you what was going on, as if his head was caught in the door. Anjali scratched his head and said depressedly, Oh, I drank too much last night, and it's giving me a headache now. Why are you drinking so much alcohol? Anjali said, Isn't your brother here my brother? Dabalu. Subaru shouted and said, We are all called Balu, but not brothers. Anjali felt amused when he saw Subaru's reaction, thought for a while, and said yes, I'll give you something. I'm looking for. Anjali groped for a while, but couldn't find it, so he had to say you wait here, it should have fallen into my room. Anjali went back in a hurry, came out in a hurry, took a crumpled booklet and handed it to Sparbeast and said. This is a mysterious and unpredictable swordsmanship secret book, I will give it to you, you can take it and practice it. Wow, yay. Subaru took the cheat sheet and shouted happily, and then he saw the cover of the booklet. He felt that the cover was crumpled and asked, Why does this cover become like this? Anjali said, When I went to bed last night, I pressed him under my face. Subaru nodded happily and said, That's really a face, I took it to practice. Anjali's embarrassing nods. He said, Okay, let's go practice. Subaru walked away foolishly with the swordsmanship manual. Subaru wanted to find a place to practice swordsmanship, but he felt that it was not good after walking a lot. It happened that he met Zoro who was hanging out on the way, and Subaru said to Zoro with the swordsmanship manual. I have a manual of swordsmanship, don't you? Zoro endured the embarrassment that was about to happen, turned around and left. Anjali sat in the room for a whole morning. Finally, the pain in his head was no longer so bad. He wanted to go again, so he went to find the two and said. I'm going back, so you should go back with me too. The two of them had no opinion. Following Anjali on the boat sailed very smoothly. The journey was smooth and fast. Subaru stood on the deck and felt the cool breeze of the sea. As they passed through a strait, two seagulls passed over the ship, then moved forward, and soon it became a small point and disappeared. While Subaru was sighing, he suddenly saw a white dot appear in his sight. He thought it was a seagull flying back. But he soon discovered that it was not a seagull, but Marine's sail. Subaru shouted loudly. Zhao is good. No, our ship encountered Marine. Anjali was drinking juice in the room, thinking about some messy things. When he heard Subaru's words, he didn't hear it clearly for a while. Thinking that Subaru was going crazy. But he soon heard the word, Marine, and knew something was wrong. He hurried to the deck, and then saw several Marine ships speeding towards them. After a while, Marine surrounded their ship. Chapter 142 Forces back Marine. Several large ships of Marine soon surrounded Anjali's ship, blocking Anjali's way of going and retreating. Anjali's ship also slowed down, and he told Subaru that it looked like there was going to be a big fight. Subaru is also gearing up for battle. Just then, on one of the Marine warships came out Garp and Smoker. Garp stopped the cigar in his mouth, laughing and shouting. You pirates, do you want to be captured or you want to be bombed into the sea by me? Subaru said loudly, We are not afraid of death, just come if we want to do it. Anjali looked at Subaru and felt that he hadn't spoken yet. He was a little dissatisfied that Subaru had robbed him of his lines. It was aimed at the people on Anjali's ship, and the cannons on the warship were also aimed at Anjali's ship. Anjali felt that the situation was very unfavorable. At this time, Garp said again that although you have to sacrifice heroically, then I will satisfy you, prepare. At Garp's order, Marine is all ready. Just then, someone suddenly shouted. Everyone heard the sound AGBF but were not sure where it came from. Looking around the marine door, Garp also felt puzzled, and at this moment, the voice said again. Marine all back down. Of course, Marine couldn't back down. Only at this time Tashigi and Kuina suddenly appeared next to the marine warship. Both of them flew with their swords and chopped the cannon sticking out of the boat into 2 pieces. Marine was startled, and Garp also found something wrong and shouted, fire. The cannons on several ships were still ready to fire. After hearing Garp's order, one by one shells flew out of the barrels. Anjali shouted loudly, prepare to be prepared. The shells poured down on Anjali's ship like raindrops. Anjali and the people on the boat jumped up to block the flying shells. Both Tashigi and Kuina quickly destroyed the cannons of both ships. The two jumped into the boat again to fight those marines. However, they soon saw the cannons of other ships firing at Anjali, and the two jumped over to destroy the cannons on other ships. It took almost 10 minutes. Tashigi and Kuina destroyed all the cannons on the ship. Lost. Anjali and the others were relieved without the cannon attack, and stood on the boat watching the situation on the marine. After the cannon on the marine's ship was destroyed, the commander on the marine's warship launched a loud, full-strength attack to kill the 2 men. But both Tashigi and Kuina are too powerful, and one big move can kill a large number of marine soldiers. The soldiers on the marine's ship were beaten to their knees and had no chance of winning. In the end, those commanders also felt that there was no way to fight, so they ordered loudly again, shouting to all members, retreat, retreat. Marine warships began to retreat hastily. Tashigi and Kuina joined the marine warship and began to retreat, and the attack was not so brave, but only made some attacks on those marines who were retreating slowly. When the people on the Angel's boat saw marines starting to retreat, they finally breathed a sigh of relief, and everyone cheered. Chapter 143 Getting on Board. Subaru was amazed when they saw the 2 of them knocking off all the marines, and screamed there. The rest of the Angel's ship began to clean up the mess on the deck. When Marine's cannonballs attacked just now, although everyone blocked the cannonballs, they also damaged some wooden barrels and boxes on the deck. There was a wooden barrel filled with food, which was broken by the fragments of the falling shell, and some food inside also fell out. Subaru asked strangely, why didn't these foods go into the warehouse? The person who was carrying the things said, the warehouse is full, and these have to be put here. Subaru was about to speak, and suddenly saw a person jumping out of the marine warship that was moving away. The person stepped on the sea and quickly moved towards Subaru was shocked when they ran over here, and said, who is that, who is coming towards us? The people on the boat didn't quite believe it, but they couldn't help but poke their heads and looked at the sea. Sure enough, they all saw a man stepping on the sea at a very fast speed and running towards them, coming. At this time, they had already seen who that person was. Subaru shouted loudly, be careful, it's Garp here. Although Garp was running on the sea, he was still shouting a cigar, and soon he approached Anjali's boat. Anjali frowned, knowing that Garp was coming, and he had to fight, so he said get ready. Everyone on his boat took up arms. At this moment, Garp on the sea roared while biting his cigar, kicked his foot on the sea, and the sea was just a ripple, but the others flew into the air, and then roared and landed on Anjali's boat. Bang! After a sound, the whole ship seemed to sink for a while, but soon it kept shaking again. Garp fell off the boat with such a force that he could have smashed the deck directly, but because of the good control of the force was transmitted to the entire deck, so the whole boat sank. Everyone on Angry was shocked by Garp's performance, and everyone held weapons at him. Garp looked at some of the people around him with contempt, and then said that it was you people. Anjali stepped forward and said with a smile. Garp Vice Admiral, I didn't expect you to come to me as a guest zero. Ask for flowers. Subaru laughed and said. What a joke, I think he came from the trap. The others on Angry's boat also laughed, thinking that Garp's operation was a failure. Garp looked around at these people again, and then pointed at Anjali and said that you are the captain of this ship. Exactly below. Anjali said with a smile. Garp loosened his muscles and clapped his fingers again, and then said to Anjali that it's fine, I'm going to clean you up today. What are you kidding? Subaru said, why didn't you ask us first if you wanted to clean up our captain? Anjali felt that what Subaru said was also very reasonable, so he patted Subaru and said it was well said. Subaru was happy too, laughing. Anjali then said to Garp, did you hear me? If you want to deal with me, deal with them first. Garp sneered and said, one or two little bugs, I punched one to death. Anjali said to Subaru. Well, you go and fight him first. Chapter 144 Direct War. Garp didn't take Subaru seriously from the very beginning, because he knew that Subaru was actually a very weak existence to himself. Yes, if you really want to fight against him, then this is also a very simple thing. There is absolutely no need to confront him with a 127 striker, because in Garp's eyes, he has never really looked down on him. So Garp decided that it would be better to punch him directly to the ground. In this case, there is no need for him to continue to deal with him. Otherwise, it is just a waste of time and Garp brews the infuriating energy in his body, and then punches he just fought towards Subaru, because he knew that Subaru didn't have much power at all, but at this time, Subaru avoided it all at once. Garp was really angry, because Garp never thought about why Subaru would become like this. Originally, Garp never thought that Dasha would have such strength. This incident directly made Garp feel very angry. Garp felt that he should not underestimate the enemy like this. If he continued to underestimate the enemy, then maybe they didn't know when the battle would end. If the entanglement continues, then by the end, both of them will definitely be exhausted, and there will be no winner or loser. At this time, Garp used up Haki in his body and decided to open him, and then directly knocked down Subaru. Only in this way can he be quickly subdued. Garp has become more and more powerful after Haki is turned on. At this time, Garp is not the same as before. He no longer has to deal with Subaru like before, but uses his best skills. And Subaru, the two confronted each other. Although Subaru had been attacking violently before this, he also saw Garp use Haki at this time. When Garp's Haki was used, his whole person became different, and what happened at this time also made Subaru somewhat unexpected. When Subaru and Garp were desperately fighting against each other, the people around them simply it's so stupid that they didn't expect things to turn out like this. And Subaru's every move now makes them feel very shocked, because at the beginning, they did not expect that Garp and Subaru would deal with them for so long. At this time, Garp didn't want to continue talking nonsense with him. At this time, after Garp opened Haki, he has been attacking violently. Subaru was obviously overwhelmed, but Garp had absolutely no intention of going back. Haki had been turned on. The chance of this 55 decisive battle should not be wasted, so Garp has been trying his best to fight against him. After Haki is turned on, Garp is really different, and at this time it's completely different from before. At this time, he also suddenly made the people around him feel admirable. However, at this time, Subaru can actually see that he may really be unable to beat Garp now. Chapter 145, Defense Evasion. He knows that he and Garp have been going on for such a long time, and the confrontation between the two has always been in a state of inferiority. He will always prevail and never be able to prevail. When will he be able to defeat Garp? In the face of such a thing, Garp never wanted to back down, but Subaru felt that he was really thinking of a way. If you continue to use such a method to fight, then in the end, you will definitely fail sooner or later. Subaru felt that if he wanted to defeat Garp, he had to think of a new way, so a new idea 06 was born in his mind, that is, if he could keep avoiding it. As long as Garp can only continue to consume his strength, Garp will definitely lose his physical strength at the end, and at that time, he can directly let him win. However, such a thing is all a real thought in Subaru's own heart. He doesn't want to let others know about such a thing, and he has been attacking him with such a tactic. But this kind of math was suddenly seen by Garp, because Garp had used this method for many years before, so when he watched other people use this method in front of him, he really saw it all at once, because he felt that this was nothing compared to nothing. If they can really beat themselves in this way, don't they just imagine themselves as a big idiot? Garp saw this in his mind right away. So while Garp has been fighting against Subaru, he said another word to Subaru. Subaru, don't continue to use this method to fight against me. You have to know that I already know about this kind of thing. I hope you can show your strength to fight against me. Stop using this trick. Garp said this, because when Garp said these words, he just hoped that Subaru could show his strength to have a real confrontation with him. Instead of constantly dodging like this, if they keep dodging, then in the end, neither of them will be able to tell the difference, but at this time Subaru will not listen to him at all, so Garp only can have to give up the attack on Subaru. He saw that Anjali was next door, so he rushed towards Anjali. If Anjali can be won directly at this time, then this is a great thing for him. 527. But when he was afraid of attacking Anjali, Anjali was already mentally prepared, although Anjali did not want to join the battle between the two of them at the very beginning. At this point, Garp had given up the fight and rushed towards Anjali, so Anjali felt a little shocked, but he also had to accept such a challenge. In Anjali's heart, he always felt that it was them. The battle between the two has nothing to do with him at all, but now that Subaru is standing next to him, he feels very dazed. Chapter 146, A Heavy Blow. When Anjali saw Garp rushing towards him, his first reaction was to dodge, because he didn't want to have a real confrontation with Garp at all. It's related, but if Garp is going to hit him directly, then he really doesn't need to fight him at all. This is Anjali's own real thought. He doesn't want to continue, because of such a thing. He has a dispute with Garp, but at this time, the disciples around him also saw such a scene. Anjali treats his apprentices very well in his usual life, so these apprentices are really unbearable when they see Anjali facing such a thing now. They feel that Anjali is at this time. They have already been attacked by Garp, so they really need to make a small contribution of their own. Even if they can't help Anjali, at the very least, they must let others know that what they are doing now is not at all so silently ignoring. When Anjali avoided Garp all of a sudden, when he attacked him, everyone else felt that there were some things they didn't know why Anjali reacted so quickly all of a sudden. Maybe it was because Anjali had already thought of such a thing from the very beginning, so he didn't want to be looked down upon by others because of such a problem. Dodge. After Garp's attack on himself, Anjali's apprentices felt that such a thing couldn't just let him fight alone, but when the apprentices were going to help him Anjali stopped them all at once, because Anjali felt that such a thing was completely unnecessary to get them up. First of all, with his own efforts, he can completely attack Garp, and he also feels that if he asks his apprentices to help, it will become more bullying. And then when Anjali finished saying this, everyone else felt that this was really a very abnormal thing. And if there is anything, Anjali can tell them directly, so this is Anjali facing his apprentices. You stay away first. Don't hurt you. This matter has nothing to do with you. You don't have to come and participate. Anjali said this, but when Anjali finished saying this, he suddenly found that a new character suddenly appeared on the sea. At this time, Smoker also came, and when he came, he had already abandoned his ship. The only purpose of abandoning the ship to come to this place may be to attack Anjali and the others. But the Angelis didn't feel any fear at all about the Smoker, Qian Zhao, in front of him, because he knew that these people were just side dishes to him if he really wanted to confront them head-on. Then they are probably not their opponents. And if you continue to entangle with them, Anjali also feels that this is a completely meaningless thing, but when Anjali found that Smoker abandoned the ship and came. Chapter 147, Smoke Fruit. Anjali already knew what kind of purpose he was. Because his purpose is simply too obvious, and his eyes have already revealed what he wants to do now. At this time, when Smoker came to the shore, he came directly to Anjali, and he had already joined forces with Garp in silence. When he and Garp were in the process of joining forces, there was no dispute at all because of such a thing, and the two of them never had a positive communication. They just hoped to be able to clarify such a problem in a positive way. And when Garp and Smoker joined forces inexplicably, Anjali suddenly felt that they actually had a tacit understanding. But why they have such a tacit understanding of 540 really makes them feel a little helpless. At this time, many people will feel that this kind of thing has always made them feel a little bit painful, especially the disciples around them. They see such a thing. After it happened, it really made them feel a little powerless, and they had always hoped to help the teacher. Because the teacher didn't let them step forward and intervene in such things, they could only watch the battle silently by the side, but when they carefully observed this battle, they found out. It turned out that they really underestimated the strength of the master. With Anjali's own strength, they could completely defeat the two of them. At this time, Anjali began to divide his experience into two parts. And he used his two sword moves respectively. Before this, Anjali never thought that he would fight against the two of them together, but when it happened, Anjali could only silently deal with such problems. Go and make it clear to them that sometimes Anjali wants to communicate directly with them, but they don't give him such a chance at all. And now Anjali can only go to confront them once. When Anjali divides the two of them into two parts and fights one by one, it really makes Garp feel a little helpless. At this point, Garp already understood that he may not be Anjali's opponent now, and the tricks Anjali is using now really make him feel a little helpless or even a little unstoppable, but no matter what, when he can't hold back, he also has to support such a thing, which is really a matter of face for the rest of them. If he is directly defeated by Anjali, then this is really a ridiculous joke for him. In the end, Anjali used his own twice, and when he saw it, he easily suppressed them. Next, Subaru and Garp fell to the ground. Obviously, Anjali won this battle. All the disciples felt very happy around, and they were also happy for Anjali. After all, this time Anjali really defeated the two of them all at once. It may be a little difficult for them. What's more, Anjali really didn't have much strength in this battle, so the two of them were defeated. Next, many people will think that this kind of thing may be very simple for Anjali. Chapter 148, Laughing and Drinking. At this time, Anjali just smiled faintly and said nothing more. Because Anjali is a very low-key person when he comes together, he doesn't want to be able to show how majestic he really is with them at such a time. But the next scene really made Anjali feel a little helpless, because Anjali felt that Garp was like a child. At this time, Garp suddenly pouted his big mouth, and seemed to be a little unhappy. He always felt that he was really defeated by Anjali now, really too shameless. Moreover, he never thought that he would be defeated by Anjali so easily, not to mention that he and Smoker did not subdue Anjali when they joined forces, so when he thought of this, he really let Garp. He felt a little powerless, and he also felt that he was simply too incompetent. If it wasn't because he was so incompetent, how could he have been defeated by them so quickly? When Anjali saw Garp like this, he suddenly felt that Garp was just too cute as a child, so Anjali became Garp's side and said to Garp, well, don't continue to worry about Garp, and you need to know that there is absolutely no need for us to continue discussing such things. I have a good bottle of wine for you now, do you want to drink it? Anjali said this because Anjali had known before that he had always had a good relationship with Garp, and seldom had some disputes because of being together. Garp already knew when he heard Garp say these words. In fact, Anjali has always been a good friend for himself, and when he heard these two words for a long time, he no longer wanted to continue. Angry. So the next two people sat down and started drinking. When many people saw such a scene between the two of them, they were really happy for them, because they might think that this kind of thing might be a little unexpected, because after all, in the first second, the two people still fighting together. But in the next second, they started to miss such a good thing together. No matter what, Anjali still hopes to make Garp happier, so that their good friends will not be broken like this. But suddenly, in the process of laughing, Anjali really felt a shock, that is, he suddenly felt that the sky seemed to turn dark. And Garp also thought the same, because Garp also felt that the sunny day seemed to be turning dark, so at this time, the two of them raised their heads together. When they raised their heads, they found that there was really an opposite stone in the sky. Where did the big stone come from? It really made the two of them feel helpless, and they felt that they didn't even know what was going on. It's just that Anjali felt that if something like this happened, they couldn't let them go so easily, and such an event would definitely have some surprises. Could it be that something unusual will really happen next? At this time, Anjali was worried. Chapter 149, Fujitora Advent. He is no longer as unhappy as before, because he feels that the most important thing now is to find out the truth. Why did it suddenly turn black today, and what the truth behind the blackening looked like, Anjali really couldn't figure it out. But at this time, when Anjali felt very depressed, because he didn't know who this person was, and he didn't understand what 597 was all about, Garp laughed. Because when Garp saw such a prospect, he already knew that it must be a very important thing, and Garp already knew it. In fact, such a thing is a very common thing for him. Garp understands that every time Fujitora appears from here, it will become a sub-scenario like now, so he feels very ordinary about such a thing, but Anjali feels a little helpless. Because Anjali still felt a little shocked at this time, he couldn't just turn a blind eye to such a thing, so he rushed to the sky at once, and when he came to the sky, he began to look around. Because this place is still a bit unfamiliar to him, and this is his first time here, so he hopes to quickly find the next one for him in this place. Very important thing. After all, this piece of clear sky on the mainland suddenly turned black. If such an unusual thing occurs, something must happen. But the next most important thing for him is to quickly find such a purpose, but when he came to the sky, he began to find such a thing. At this time, Anjali began to doubt that he was looking on the ground. Is it all fake, or is it because of my dazzling eyes just now? It seems that it is not very likely. Anyway, Anjali also feels that things have become like this now, so it is still necessary to find the truth of a matter in this place, otherwise, he may not even forgive himself. Then, when Anjali kept looking around in the sky, he suddenly discovered a secret, because he felt that there was a person in this place. But why did this person appear here all of a sudden? Maybe it was just one reason why a lotus leaf suddenly formed on the ground. In short, Anjali was really curious about such a person, so they came over, and then he found this person as none other than Fujitora. He was really curious that Fujitora could suddenly appear here, so Anjali said to Fujitora at this time. Fujitora, why did you appear here alone, and the scene on the ground that the sunny day suddenly turned black? Are you doing something wrong? 33. If this is the case, I hope you can give me the truth of a matter. Anjali said this, because when Anjali said this, he didn't have any other thoughts, he just hoped that Fujitora could tell the truth of the matter, and why it was like this just now. Anjali, I really don't understand something. Chapter 150. At this time, Anjali already knew that Fujitora was not a very useful opponent at all, because he felt that Fujitora may have some small ideas of his own in the way he is now. At this time, Fujitora looked at Anjali like this and didn't want to continue talking nonsense with him, because he felt that the next most important thing for him was to quickly let him fight, because Fujitora had just emerged in Marine, so at this time he is no longer as flat as before, and has his own certain strength and energy. He has always regarded Anjali as one of his competitors, although Anjali has never seriously regarded him as a 06 in himself. An equal opponent. But Fujitora thinks that if he can really defeat Anjali one day, then this is really a supreme thing for him, and it is also an honorable thing. So this time, when he faced Anjali, he really felt that he couldn't control himself, so he quietly followed Garp's boat and came here secretly. Of course, Garp didn't know about this series of things. Yes, but if Garp had known about such a thing long ago, it would be impossible for him to come with him. Moreover, now that Anjali has found out the truth, he feels that this is the one before Fujitora in front of him. It's ridiculous, and he has never done anything to offend him, but why did this Fujitora let himself be a thorn in the flesh? Any case, Fujitora has regarded him as an ideal opponent in his mind, and the most important thing for him now is to hope to defeat Anjali as soon as possible. Fujitora has always hoped to defeat Anjali under his own hands and make Anjali surrender in front of him, but no matter what, this is just the real thought in Fujitora's own mind. Whether or not he can defeat Anjali successfully, he actually knows something about such a thing, but no matter what, Anjali still hopes to have a head-on confrontation with him. Didn't want to fight with Fujitora, but Anjali looked at Fujitora in front of him, and he knew that Fujitora might not let him go easily. And Fujitora's eyes were full of murderous aura, as if to shred it into 1,000 pieces before giving up, but facing all this now, Anjali can't just let it go. During the fight between Anjali and Fujitora, Garp was on the ground by himself watching what was happening in the sky, and felt a little pain. Because this might be a very simple thing for him after all, but why Fujitora appeared here all of a sudden really made Garp feel strange. At this time, he suddenly remembered that before this, he always felt that his ship seemed to be a strange place, but he did not check such a thing carefully. And now when he thought of these two things, he suddenly felt that it might be because he should have noticed such a strange place at the very beginning, and then got off the boat and checked it out. Chapter 151 Devil's Power. But when faced with such a thing next, others may think that this is a big deal, but Anjali still hopes to defeat Fujitora quickly because he doesn't want to waste any more time on Fujitora. It's not a worthwhile thing for him at all, and if he has this time, he can go to have a good rest. It's not a very reasonable thing for him to waste time on Fujitora. When Anjali decided to fight him quickly, he suddenly discovered that in fact, Fujitora has been relying on a magic fruit to fight. During the non-stop battle, Zoro and Guy on the ground now also noticed this at once, because Zoro and Guina already knew what kind of strength Anjali was before. They understand that if the two of them really want to fight together once, it is really a very boring thing for Anjali. Because Anjali has never done anything to disappoint them, and now they also hope that Fujitora can leave this place quickly, so don't waste Anjali's time. Anjali has been arguing with them because of such a problem. At this moment, Zoro and Guina on the ground were having a conversation. Guina, didn't you find it? I feel that this Fujitora is obviously not strong, and when he came this time, if it wasn't for relying on the magic fruit, he might have been defeated long ago. Zoro said this, because when Zoro said this, he just wanted to make this Fujitora leave quickly and truly. This place must not continue to waste Anjali's time, but at this time Guina said yes to him. Zoro, do you think I don't know such a thing? But now the master will not listen to what the two of us say, let alone now that the two of us say these things, he will not know at all. Zoro and Li Zhaohong said this, because in their minds, they both felt that such a thing was completely unnecessary for Anjali to fight in person, and if it wasn't for Fujitora relying on the power of the devil fruit, they have already failed. So they didn't take a person like Fujitora into their eyes at all. If Anjali really wants to do it himself, then this is simply wasting one of his strengths, killing chickens with a butcher's knife. What? Then Zoro and Guina felt very helpless, because they knew that no matter what they said, Anjali would not listen to one of the opinions of the two of them. Qian Wang Zhao. In fact, this is just an idea of the two of them, and since things have happened now, well, the protagonist of this matter is Anjali, so how Anjali wants to fight against Fujitora is his own business. Even if others say what they say behind their backs, he will not listen. Anjali is actually an authoritarian person, and sometimes he wants to do things himself. Chapter 150 Second Doctrine. It's just that he listens to his own thoughts, and he won't listen to other people's opinions about him at all. And Lao Song's own heart is also very clear. Zoro and Ji Yuyin are silently paying attention to such a thing behind their backs. In fact, it is also because they are more concerned about such things as themselves. It is also normal for Anjali. Yes, but Anjali still doesn't want them to silently pay too much attention to such a thing because after all, this thing is not a good thing at all, and it might even lead to death. This is also Lao Sun. For their sake. Soon after a fight between the two, Fujitora was defeated, and even before that, he had been relying on the power of the devil fruit to fight against Anjali. 297 is actually a very unfair thing, but Anjali did not quarrel with him a lot because of such a thing. And now, when Anjali found out that Fujitora had been defeated, he no longer wanted to continue fighting with Fujitora. This was his decision to leave such a matter to Garp. Then Garp will definitely handle such a thing very well, not to mention Garp is also very willing to do such a thing. Change Angli Agfa Fujitora, who had just been defeated, was handed over to Garp. He knew that Garp would definitely have a lot of ways to deal with such a thing. What's more, he knew that Garp was on the ship now, so he sent Fujitora to Garp's ship and gave Garp a wink. Because Anjali knows that if he leaves the post without authorization as a Marine, then such a crime is very serious, not to mention that if such a matter is handed over to Garp, then Garp will definitely do it very beautifully. When Garp saw that Anjali brought Fujitora to him, he already knew what Anjali meant, and he understood that Anjali definitely hoped that he could punish him. Therefore, the current between Garp and Anjali is still very sufficient. At this time, Garp nodded to Anjali, and then took Fujitora to another place. Garp knows very well in his heart that if he leaves his post without permission as a Marine, then he will face such a thing next, and Faye will really have to accept a very serious punishment, so why not expel him directly from here? So Garp thought about the deportation of Fujitora who brought Anjali here. Maybe this is a very bad thing for Fujitora, but Garp still hopes to make Anjali understand that his ability to do things is still relatively strong. After Garp learned about Anjali's meaning, he quickly removed Fujitora from the Marine. Thinking back then, in order to become an admiral in the Marine, and such a thing that Fujitora came to prominence here, it is also true. It's a lot of effort. But now who made him offend Anjali? If he really offended Anjali, then Garp might not let him go so easily, so Garp thought about it and quickly gave him from this place. Kicked out. In fact, this matter is for Fujitora. Chapter 153, Hard-mouthed and soft-hearted. Although it's a bit unfair, this is also what he asked for himself, if it wasn't because he left the post without authorization. How could there be such a series of things happening next, so? Garp felt that what he was doing was actually a no-brainer. He may still want to help you comfort yourself with a word, because I have always been a kinder person in my daily life. He also doesn't want to do something that makes others feel a little helpless, but this is also impossible. At this time, Fujitora had been removed from Marine's identity. At this time, he really felt extremely frustrated. In the beginning, Fujitora was able to become a general in Marine. After a lot of hard work, one day he can finally become such an achievement as he is today, but he accidentally offended Anjali, but such a thing is not a very important thing to him at all. Fujitora feels that what he is doing now is nothing more than a blameless thing, and he just wants to confront Anjali head-on. In everyone's mind, there will be an excellent opponent, and in Fujitora's mind, he feels that the best opponent is Anjali, and this time in the process of confronting the two of them, he never felt very convinced. He knew that although Anjali said he had certain strength, he was defeated by him inexplicably. It was really a time that Fujitora couldn't recover. At this time, when Ji Yuyina saw such a scene happening, she felt that she should really persuade her. Because Ji Yuyina knows that Fujitora must be in a bad mood now. If she can be persuaded quickly, then Fujitora will definitely go directly to Angola as a teacher, which is also beneficial to her. So Ji Yuyina looked at the lost Fujitora and came to Fujitora's side, patted Fujitora's shoulder lightly, and said to Fujitora, "How about Fujitora? I don't think your mental state is very good now. Do you feel a little lost because you have just been defeated by Anjali? 0. Ask for flowers. Ji Yuyina said this, but when Ji Yuyina finished saying this, she actually didn't want to ask Fujitora to give him an answer because he understood that Fujitora is also a man who always has his own self-esteem. So at this point he continued to say to Fujitora, "Why don't you look at Anjali? His strength is far superior to you. If you can worship him as your teacher, I think it will be of great benefit to both of you. 0. In this way, he can have an extra right-hand man, and you can also increase your value. Don't you think this is the best of both worlds?" Ji Yuyina said this, because when Chen Na said these words, he didn't have any other thoughts. He just hoped that both Fujitora and Anjali could get what they needed in the process of persuading Fujitora. He thought that Fujitora would definitely agree, but Fujitora's behavior really surprised him. Ji Yuyina never imagined that Fujitora would refuse at once. Chapter 154 The Amazing Act. This is what Fujitora said to Guina at once. "I advise you to die. Let me tell you, even if I die, I will not worship Anglil as a teacher, and I know that this person in Anglil has always been an arrogant person. It is absolutely impossible for me to worship him as a teacher." Fujitora said this, but when Fujitora finished saying this, he was suddenly heard by N. 573 inches Gregory. At this time, Angry also felt that he was full of energy and could not bear it. This sentence. So Anjali didn't even think about it. He grabbed Fujitora directly and threw him into the sea. Everyone was very shocked by such a thing because in normal life, Anjali is not such a person at all. Man, and he had never done such a violent thing before. At this time, Fujitora was inexplicably thrown into the sea and still felt a little angry. And the disciples were also amazed. Faced with such a thing, everyone didn't know how to continue. Everyone looked at each other, waiting for Anjali to say the next sentence. Unexpectedly, Anjali didn't say anything at this time, and just left quietly, leaving the apprentices here at a loss, but before Fujitora fell into the sea, he did something that surprised everyone. Matter. At this time, Fujitora competed with its own gravity to lift the sea water into the air. Everyone felt a little shocked that this happened. They never imagined that Fujitora would do such a thing, and what will Fujitora do next? They are not clearly, but what Fujitora did next also surprised them. Because many people know about Fujitora, in fact, if he encounters seawater, he will definitely become a master of ability, so at this time, Fujitora had to come up with some ways to save himself. At this time, he used gravity to attract some rocks, and then took the opportunity. Everyone who escaped the danger saw Fujitora doing such a thing. It really made them feel amazing. After all, Fujitora can do such a thing, and it really makes everyone feel that he is still very smart. If it weren't for him being so smart, things might not have become what they are today. The disciples have all seen this scene, but no matter what. No matter how shocked they were, it was meaningless, and Fujitora had already said long ago that it was impossible for him to see Zoro and Guina next to him. They found that such Fujitora really has his own abilities, and what he did also made everyone feel that this kind of reaction ability is really not something that ordinary people can have. So after the incident, they felt that they should go have a good communication with Fujitora about such 44 things. Everyone is thinking, why didn't Fujitora want to be a teacher with Anjali, let alone a series of things that Anjali had done before that? It also made everyone feel that this is not something ordinary people can do at all. So everyone thinks that if the two of them can really become a relationship, then this is a good thing for both of them. Chapter 155 is breathtaking. But in fact, these are just some ideas of other people. After all, the parties do not want to do this at all. No matter how much they miss such a thing, it is impossible to achieve it. Moreover, the disciples also felt that Anjali should also know that this kind of thing happened. At this time, Anjali also saw such a scene beside him. When Anjali found such a scene happening in front of him, he also felt very interesting, so Anjali decided at this time that he should give Fujitora another chance. This time Anjali walked directly to Fujitora's side, and then asked Fujitora the last sentence. Fujitora, I am also quite sad. What happened to you now? I hope O6 can give you a chance. I will ask you one last time, do you want to be my apprentice? I just want to tell you that I have always been outspoken in everything I do, and I will say it directly if there is anything, I absolutely can't beat around the bush. And what I said to you today is the last time, it can only be the last time, and now I will ask you one last time, do you really want to be my apprentice? After Anjali finished saying this, he looked at Fujitora in front of him. He knew that Fujitora was staring at him, and he didn't know what Fujitora was thinking, so he said to Fujitora, I don't want to forget it. Turned around to leave. In fact, he just wanted to let Fujitora know that after saying this, he didn't want to stay any longer. And he also understands that if he makes such an action, it may really make Fujitora make a quick decision too. This time, when Fujitora saw Anjali about to turn around and leave, she immediately agreed to Anjali. This is what Fujitora told Anjali. I do. Master, if you really want me to be your apprentice, now I'm really convinced, I'm willing to be your apprentice. When Fujitora finished saying these 3 words, I am willing, it also surprised many people present, because they never imagined that Fujitora did not want to go to Angrol at the beginning. And the words are also very absolute, so there are not so many people who imagine that such a thing will happen in front of them. When Fujitora and Anjali had successfully apprenticed, Anjali also felt very happy. At this time, Anjali felt that he was really successful. He received a new talent and felt very satisfied with his apprentice. Anjali feels that what 613 has always wanted most is an apprentice like now, because he really has a super reaction ability. Even if he is thrown into the sea by others, he can successfully save himself like this. So Anjali was very willing to accept him as a disciple in the face of such an ability as him. This is enough to see that his understanding is relatively high, and his mind is relatively smart. Who might not like such a flexible land? When everyone felt very happy, Anjali suddenly received a prompt from the system for him, which was the task that the system gave him. Chapter 156 Successfully Subdued. The new task is for him to receive 5 new apprentices. Moreover, these 5 apprentices must be apprentices of different races, they can't be from their own race at all, so Anjali suddenly felt such a thing at this time, and it made him feel a little difficult. Anjali gave himself a reminder through the system. It has also been checked that these apprentices can be mermaid, long-armed, or even 3-eyed. This task is really inexplicable, and when Anjali saw such a task, he really felt a bit of a headache. What should he do next? Anjali is also a little helpless. But in the face of a task given to him by the system, he had to complete it again. At this time, Anjali could only participate in such a thing inexplicably. At this time, Anjali knew that if he continued to procrastinate, then this task would be impossible to complete at all, and then he really needed to set off immediately to Mermaid Island. Then he might quickly receive a few apprentices on Mermaid Island, so that he could complete a prompt given to him by the system, but at this time, everyone felt that if Anjali was to go alone, it might be a little dangerous, and such a thing really made them feel a little helpless. At this time, everyone decided to follow Anjali to Zoro, and they came to Anjali's side all of a sudden, and then said to Anjali. Column said, Anjali, I don't think you should go to this matter alone, because I think such a thing must be obvious. It's better to let everyone follow you to Zoro, because when Zoro said this when he was talking, he was really worried about Anjali. He didn't want Anjali to go alone, because it was really very dangerous for him to be alone. But at this moment, when Anjali heard that each of their apprentices said such words in front of him, he was still moved, because he knew that these apprentices were really loyal to him. But Anjali is also very clear in his heart, if he really wants to go to Mermaid Island to receive apprentices, then you really shouldn't bring too many people. If there are too many people, then this matter will have no greater benefit. Maybe the next thing Anjali rejected them, made them feel a little helpless. This is what Anjali said to them. Well, I've already accepted your wishes. You don't have to worry about going to Mermaid Island next, and I think it's fine as long as Fujitora and Nami follow me. Said this, because in Anjali's heart, he always believed that Fujitora was his new apprentice. If he was taken with him, then this incident would just be able to see Fujitora's ability to respond. How did you bring Nami with him? It was just a random person, so when Anjali had chosen these two characters, he was ready to go to the island. Because Anjali knew that if they only took these two people, then the disciples would have nothing else to do, and it would be unfair to them, so Anjali thought of a new method, this time. Chapter 157, The Headache Task. Anjali said to them. Zoro, Guyana, why don't you do this? You can find other alien bases for me. If we can find other alien bases, then we may not waste too much time. Anjali issued such an order to his apprentices, so he left like this. The other apprentices followed what Anjali said and did it. Because they also know what Anjali said, which is actually very reasonable. If they can quickly go to the base of other tribes, then they can quickly complete such a task. The one hand, Anjali brought Fujitora and Nami to the sea, because they had to pass through the sea when they reached the Fishman clan in 590, but because Anjali already knew it before that Fujitora, he is the power controller of a devil fruit, so he is really powerless in the face of seawater. Next, Anjali thought of a good way. He knew that if Fujitora really wanted to overcome one of the fears here, then this matter must be done from beginning to end, and a good way must be thought of. So Anjali directly made Fujitora lose consciousness. Because only if it loses consciousness, it can continue to dive in the sea, and when it dives for a certain amount of time, it can slowly reach the mermaid group. Used such a method to let Fujitora go down into the sea with him. At this time, Fujitora completely lost consciousness and kept diving in the sea. He felt a little tired after diving straight, maybe because it made them feel a little hard after what happened, but anyway, he has completely lost consciousness now. After diving for a while, he finally realized such a feeling, and Fujitora understood that although he said he was diving now, many people didn't know how to continue, but Anjali was still very clear about such a thing. Because Anjali knew that he and Fujitora had already fought once, so he understood that Fujitora was unconscious now. However, if Fujitora is to keep diving in the sea, then facing such a thing, Anjali himself may not be very clear because Anjali knows that if he keeps diving in the sea, he will when he woke up, he was not sure whether he could recover enough. After diving for a while, Fujitora finally woke up. At this time, they had reached the shore. This is Fujitora. After Blue Eyes came over and saw Anjali's appearance, he knew that all this was done by Anjali. If it wasn't for leaving the sea, it's possible that Fujitora would never have been able to run the business, because the things he's facing now are also what Angela has done for him. In fact, being able to think of such a method really opened up Anjali's mind, and this kind of thing is not a good method that anyone can think of. At this time, although Fujitora has woken up, but he suddenly felt what he had just experienced. Chapter 158 Confusion. It really made him feel a little scared, and at the moment when he completely lost his will, it was very touching for Fujitora to have someone around him to keep protecting him, because Fujitora knew that he had completely seemed going to the will, and there has always been Anjali's protection for him. This also proves. In fact, his master is quite qualified, and Fujitora also hopes to help Anjali do some things after sobering up, so that he can prove that he is a qualified apprentice with strength. But what happened next really made Anjali feel a little powerless. Originally, at the very beginning, Anjali had already thought about it. This time he didn't come, and the main purpose of encountering people was in order to accept an apprentice tilde only. But when he just landed on the island, he suddenly attracted a hostility from everyone here, and they didn't even know what the problem that Anjali came over this time was. Because Anjali is an alien to them after all, so they look at Anjali with hostility, and this kind of thing is normal, and the mermaids and fishman on the whole island look at Anjali. It was as if only the worst enemy was seen. They looked at Anjali's eyes and knew that Anjali was not a person to be provoked at all, so they quickly went back to report to King Neptune. At this time, King Neptune had also heard such news, so he quickly brought when people came to surround Anjali when he woke up. When Fujitora saw such a scene, he was really angry, because he didn't know why these people treated him like this. So Fujitora was going to fight with them, but Anjali stopped him at this moment. At this time, Anjali decided that he should go to King Neptune and make it clear, because after all, it was the two of them who were inexplicable. If they didn't come to this island, they probably wouldn't have caused the people here to have a strange view of themselves. So people are full of hostility when they look at him, which is normal. At this time, Anjali suddenly stumped Fujitora, and then calmly said to King Neptune, "King Neptune, I hope to have a good communication with me, and give me a chance to explain to you that this time we came to the island for only one purpose. I hope I can find someone here." Anjali said this calmly, because Anjali felt that what happened now was obviously wrong for him. He came to this place as an alien, and others used some violence against him, which was also normal. So Anjali wasn't angry at all, but at this moment, Fujitora couldn't stand his temper. Anjali has been suppressing him forcibly, but at this time King Neptune heard what he said, but he did not feel any relaxation of vigilance at all, because he felt that what the person in front of him said might also be false. At this time, Anjali also understood that when King Neptune looked at him, his eyes were full of distrust, so Anjali decided to explain to him again. Chapter 159 Goodwill Interpretation. King Neptune, how can you believe me? I have already told others about this at the very beginning. In fact, it has nothing to do with others, but since it has already happened, then what I tell you now, I can assure you that it is completely true, and there will be no fraudulent behavior in it. 283. Anjali said this, because in Anjali's mind, he thinks that since things have happened now, there is absolutely no need to quarrel with them, and it is normal to have something to say. When Anjali finished saying these words, he kept staring at King Neptune's eyes with his eyes, because he really hoped to be able to see in the eyes of King Neptune, get a little letter. But at this time, when Anjali finished saying these words, he had been listening to King Neptune, but King Neptune did not listen to him at all, because King Neptune felt that the person in front of him was simply untrustworthy. It may also be because before this, there were many people who would do such things in front of such a kind King Neptune, so King Neptune would not trust any stranger at all. This is King Neptune sending his soldiers directly to attack Anjali, because he feels that such a thing is completely unnecessary to waste his words. When King Neptune sent his soldiers to attack Anjali when he was arranging, Anjali didn't do anything at all, because Fujitora was following him. At this time, Fujitora saw such a scene, so he could use his own gravity. He directly controlled these soldiers. When the soldiers wanted to continue to attack Anjali, they found that they couldn't move at all. At this time, King Neptune was really shocked when he saw the scene in front of him. He didn't know, what kind of strength are these people? But this matter has already happened, then it is really necessary for Anjali to say a word. At this time, Anjali saw that Fujitora was doing very well, but he didn't say anything more. Anjali changed his understatement and said something to King Neptune in front of him. What does King Neptune want me to say so that you can believe me? In fact, I really hope to sit down with you now and be calm. Let's talk about it, but you can see that your temper is so irritable. There's something we can't face in person, just to have a good talk, and I already told you when I came here this time, my main purpose is to be able to find someone here. Since Fujitora has been using his own gravity to control these people on the opposite side, it really makes King Neptune feel dumbfounded. King Neptune does not know why this person next to Anjali is so powerful. What kind of a backing are they in the end? Such a question has always been in King Neptune's mind. King Neptune didn't know what to do today, but at this time Anjali decided that he should explain everything to him. So Anjali thought about the decision carefully. Chapter 160. Show your mind. You should still explain your psychological thoughts to him, otherwise, King Neptune may never know what kind of person he is. If he still thinks he is a bad person at the end, then what should I do? So now. Anjali sorted out his emotions here, and then said to King Neptune. Let me tell you the truth, I came here today just to find a person, and this person's name is Shirahoshi. If I can find him, I will leave this place immediately. I will never stay any longer, so I hope you can hand over this person directly. In this case, we can directly ask him to take him away, and there will be no future matters. Otherwise, things may become very troublesome. Anyway, I have made it clear to you now. As for whether King Neptune believes it, it is up to you. But when Angeli finishes saying this when speaking, many people present were very shocked, because they didn't know why this matter became like this. So the next thing might not be a good thing for them at all, but King Neptune also knows this kind of thing. Since it has happened, then they must solve this problem clearly. Watching Fujitora control his own life inexplicably like this, really made King Neptune feel very angry. At this time, he never thought that someone would have such a great ability. Although the people on the Mermaid Island are not very powerful, they have never been bullied by others, and facing such a thing today is really a shame for King Neptune. This is simply a big joke. This is too shameful. He came to this island inexplicably. He actually told himself that he wanted a person. What kind of person is this person? And in the face of such a thing as air gravity, King Neptune really dreamed of pockets. He never thought that someone would use such a trick. And it has never been seen before, so King Neptune was really angry when faced with all this in front of him. If Fujitora couldn't make it like this, then he might go to talk to him. Angela discuss it. But in fact, Fujitora's shot now is only to prevent these people from hurting his master, because after all, he had already worshipped Angeli as a teacher before. Now these people inexplicably rushed to 153 to prepare to attack Angeli, so how could he sit idly by, and these things he used air gravity were just to temporarily control some people. It didn't hurt the King Neptune videos at all, so Fujitora thought there was nothing wrong with what he did, but just then when everything had happened, Angeli said to them, "King Neptune. The words I told you are all from my heart. I really came here this time just to ask for a person, and if I can explain this person to me clearly." Chapter 161 The Forest of the Sea. I will take this person and prepare to leave immediately, and I will not stay for another minute, so I still hope to be able to think clearly about such a thing, otherwise I will not leave here so easily. Angeli said this, but when Angeli finished saying this, King Neptune just stared at him fiercely, but then Angeli continued to speak to King Neptune. "I'm here to find Shirahoshi. This person, I think you should know him too, and I didn't mean anything to tell him to go back, I just hope to accept him as a disciple. So, I hope that I can hand over Shirahoshi as soon as possible. So I can get out of here as soon as possible, and we don't have to continue to fight like this. And I also hope that King Neptune can seriously think about such a problem. Maybe this is a very difficult thing for me, but it may be very simple for King Neptune, right Tilda?" Said this, because when Angeli said this, Fujitora had been controlling these people here. Angeli didn't want to use such things to quarrel with them. But now that things have happened, King Neptune doesn't know how to continue, so at this time, King Neptune sorted out his emotions and said to Angeli, "Don't worry, it's absolutely impossible for me to agree to this matter. This time, you landed on the island inexplicably and asked me for someone when you opened your mouth. Don't you think such a thing is simply ridiculous? As a King Neptune here, it is impossible for me to do anything that makes you feel a little relaxed, so you don't have to think about it anymore. I absolutely cannot agree." King Neptune said this, because when King Neptune said this, he didn't actually have any other thoughts, he just hoped to make Angeli understand that what he was doing now was completely wrong. It's a matter of listening to your inner thoughts. You won't let Angeli get any chance at all, but this is Angeli's decision to come naturally, so he must complete such a task. So Angeli thought for a while, and then said to King Neptune, "Well, King Neptune, if you think such a thing might be a very bad thing for me, but I want you to think seriously about what I mean by saying this to you. I just hope that you can seriously think about such a question. If you can agree to this condition, then I can satisfy any of your conditions." Angeli said this. When Angeli said this, Li Zhao's, in fact, he had no other ideas. He just hoped that King Neptune would know that he is now in order to get Shirahoshi, you can really do anything. But at this time, King Neptune thought for a moment, then laughed and continued what he said to Angeli. Is it really possible under any conditions? Do you really want anything? Well, then I want your life. King Neptune said so. Chapter 162 Impossible Mission. When King Neptune finished saying this, Angeli was really shocked, but at this time Angeli also felt that what King Neptune said now must be to deliberately embarrass himself. Angeli didn't feel any fear at all. At this time, Angeli sorted out his mood and said to King Neptune. Okay, just need you to be able to find a person who can win me. If this person can win me, then he can easily kill me, otherwise I think you should want my face is not easy. In his mind, he really hoped that what he said, because he felt that what he said now was completely reasonable, not to mention that if no one could really win him, how could he kill himself? But at this time, King Neptune seemed to have made a mental preparation for Angeli's words. He knew that Angeli must be very frivolous, so King Neptune wanted to bring Angel. Go somewhere. That is the forest of the sea, because here, the forest of Hazy basically belongs to a situation where it is impossible for anyone to come back alive, successfully, and face such a thing. King Neptune has already thought about it for a long time. If Angeli can be here, then he may be more vicious in the future, so if his life is to be killed, wouldn't it be easy? When King Neptune finished saying this, Angeli didn't feel very scared at all, so he followed King Neptune to the sea forest. But what happened in the sea forest? Or what kind of danger is hidden? Angeli is not very clear. He just thinks that if he really wants to get Shirahoshi, then maybe facing these problems in front of him, he must solve them quickly, and he also knows that even if he goes to the forest of the sea, at most there will be some very ferocious things or some dangerous things waiting for him. But no matter what, Angeli must do it in the face of such a challenge. Immediately afterwards, Angeli followed King Neptune to the forest of the sea, and King Neptune said to Angeli in the forest of the sea. See it. The huge ship in front of you is called Noah. There is a huge monster in it. If you can fight against this monster may kill you. King Neptune said this with confidence, because in King Neptune's mind, he thought that if this kind of thing happened now, maybe only this monster could take Angeli's life. Because after all, he had already seen clearly how powerful Angeli was before this, so he was still very clear about such a thing, but at this time, when Angeli heard about King Neptune said that when there was a huge monster in it, he was really surprised. He didn't know why King Neptune used this monster to face himself. Is it because there is no one person on the entire Mermaid Island who can truly fight against him? But at this time, Angeli also thought about it carefully. Even if there is some monster hidden in this Noah, can this monster really kill him? Chapter 163 Giant Squid. But no matter what, Angeli decided at this time that he should stay together, so he took out a long sword in his hand and quickly split the Noah in half. Angelina took it. When he cut him in half coldly, he was stunned. King Neptune didn't even know why Angeli became so reckless. Because if any ordinary person were to face what King Neptune just said, they would definitely become very shocked and feel very scared, but Angeli was completely different from them. He actually used his sword to split the boat in half all at once. What happened next in the boat might be a problem for Angeli that made him feel a little out of control. But in the face of such a thing, King Neptune doesn't care much, because King Neptune knows that if this monster can really come out of it logically, then Angeli must be in trouble. Because originally, King Neptune just didn't want to give this Shirahoshi to Angeli, because he knew that Angeli came to the island inexplicably, which was really a great challenge for him. If Shirahoshi is directly handed over to Angeli, wouldn't it be too shameless? So at this time, he hopes to make Angeli understand that what he is doing now is just to kill him. However, immediately after splitting the ship, a black thing flew out of the ship. The black shadow left from here at once. Angeli really couldn't see what it was. But Angeli knew that no matter what it was, he had to take it down. Otherwise, King Neptune might look down on him very much. The shadow flew out of the theater at once, so he ran to it this time. Angeli could only silently chase after him. When Anjali followed this shadow, he followed it all the way to the beach. At this time, Anjali used his sword to mobilize the water in the sea, and then circled the shadow back. Only then did he realize that the shadow was nothing but a giant squid. 50,931,945. If it wasn't for the current in the water that Anjali had been mobilizing with his sword, the squid might not have been circled back so quickly, so when things happened at this time, Anjali still hopes to let them know that what he is doing now is just to let everyone understand that he is really doing whatever he can to get Shirahoshi. This huge squid ran out of Noah, which shocked King Neptune again. King Neptune didn't even know when the squid ran out so quickly. And there are a lot of people around here at this time. Everyone has seen such a scene. They know that this squid ran out of it all at once. It is definitely not an easy and simple thing. Then what kind of change will happen here? Is it because this squid really wants to harm the world? Or the madness on Mermaid Island? Faced with such a thing all the time, everyone felt a little scared and panicked. Chapter 164, Inkjet and Escape. They didn't know what to do next, but Anjali knew that if the squid escaped from this huge Noah, it might prove that the squid had always regarded this place as his home. That is because when Anjali quickly took his sword to split the place, the squid suddenly lost his home, so he escaped all at once. Anjali knew that if he really wanted to get Shirahoshi, if it is true, then it is normal for him to face these challenges, so Anjali started chasing the squid. Anjali knew that even if the squid could be fascinated to the ends of the earth, he would not let him go like this. But at this time the squid is really running faster and faster, and Anjali is also chasing after him. When King Neptune saw such a scene, he couldn't help but secretly rejoiced, because he knew that Anjali would definitely not be able to catch this squid in such an inexplicable way. And the squid escaped too quickly. At this time, when Anjali faced him and left quickly, he also felt that the thief ran away very quickly. Anjali knew that the squid looked very powerful. He has long regarded this property as his home, otherwise how could he live and work here for a long time in peace and contentment? But when Anjali was facing everything in front of him, he suddenly felt an inexplicable feeling of excitement, because he knew that when he was facing this squid, he was really able to show himself a player. In his normal life, Anjali had no chance to show his skills at all, and in the face of such a squid, he really felt a little excited. And Anjali also guessed that this squid is definitely not a young squid, and from his physique, we know that he must be a squid that has lived for a long time. It seems that he may be about to cultivate to perfection now, but no matter what, when Anjali is facing such a scene, he really hopes to catch him quickly. Only in this way can he quickly earn income, and he can prove his strength in front of King Neptune. But this squid is not a very stupid thing. He saw Anjali such a Fei Cheng's powerful people already know that this person can't be offended at all, because in normal life, if someone inexplicably splits this huge giant ship, then this squid will definitely go to him at the meeting. There was a confrontation, but the squid had already seen it at this time. This Anjali was not an ordinary human at all, so when he saw Anjali like this, he decided that you should run away first. In the process of escaping, the squid turned his head 35 and quickly sprayed at Anjali, because the squid has always used an inkjet as an attack method. Anjali was really excited to see that the squid left so quickly after spraying ink like this. He didn't know why this happened. And if the squid really is like this. Chapter 165 Seawater is polluted. If he ran away quickly like this, then he should also ask him to catch him quickly. When Anjali was facing such a thing in front of him, he still felt a little ridiculous because he knew that the squid running away quickly looked so cute, and he staggered as if he was very afraid of himself. But why is this squid so afraid of itself? It was before this. He has always assumed the image of a very ferocious monster in Noah. Maybe he has never been afraid of anyone, but when he faced himself today, he left inexplicably. Anjali suddenly sighed with emotion. Is this Black 06 thief really very smart? Do you know that you are a very powerful person now? In the process of escaping, the squid kept inkjet, probably because he thought that such a thing as inkjet would have an impact on Anjali, but Anjali always felt that this kind of thing was really true for him. It was very funny. Looking at the back of the squid fleeing, Angeli decided that he should be caught quickly. Even if he ran to the ends of the earth, Angeli would not let him go. At this time, Angeli decided that they should still understand what he is doing now. This is the direction that Angeli is heading towards the squid, and he quickly chased after him, but because the squid is more afraid of Angeli, and always thought that he was Inkjet, such a process may protect himself, so he kept Inkjet, but in the process of seawater, he kept Inkjet, which is really one of the effects of seawater. At this time, the sea became dark. Angeli was really unable to control this scene. He decided that he should try his best to catch the squid as quickly as possible, otherwise the squid constantly Inkjet. It may have a great impact on an environment here, so Angeli immediately followed the breath in this squid. Then start to keep chasing. The sea became extremely turbid, and Angeli was no longer as quiet as before because he felt that such a thing was really urgent. At first, Angeli thought that such a thing would happen. There is no need to worry at all, but at this time, Angeli saw that the seawater was getting more and more turbid, and he really couldn't control his temper. He really should have quickly caught this squid. But when he came to the squid, he had already used a move in a row, and the squid quickly escaped. When the thief was escaping, he kept spraying 980 continuously, and when facing the fatal blow that Angeli used on him, he dodged all of a sudden. When this happened, Angeli was really shocked, and Angeli didn't even know why the squid was dodging so quickly, and his body was very huge now. Such a huge body is dodging so quickly, which also proves that this squid is really not an ordinary squid, and he must have been practicing for many years, so Angeli was still very shocked at this time. He quickly came to the squid's side. Chapter 166 Fierce Mermaid. He knew that the squid would definitely not be able to run far, and that the constant inkjet printing in this seawater really had a great impact on Angeli, and then Angeli carried on him again. Second trick _. But it was a coincidence that the squid quickly evaded again. At this time, the speed of the squid's dodging really shocked Angeli. It really didn't matter. Angeli never thought of this squid. It can run so fast, what is going on? The squid dodged 2 consecutive moves. Angeli began to doubt his ability. Is it because the squid has some other methods? Or when he is in the sea, he can always dodge quickly, which may also be because of a favorable influence for him. However, because the seawater is very turbid, Angeli is not very flexible in using his moves in the seawater. Angeli knows that this squid is not a simple squid at all. If you really want to catch him completely, then you must think of a very mature way. Only in this way can he be quickly caught. In the process of Angeli's constant pursuit of misunderstandings, he suddenly discovered that there were a group of very vicious-looking mermaids around. This group of mermaids was really shocking to Angeli. And Angeli never thought that this group of mermaids would suddenly appear in front of him. They really looked different from other ordinary mermaids, according to Angeli's very smart behavior. If you look at it, it is impossible for him to be so inexplicable. It was just such a move, and Angeli also knew that these people must have taken a murderous drug. Otherwise, it is impossible for them to become so vicious, and looking at their expressions, they already know what is going on with this group of vicious people. This group of mermaids who took the vicious medicine quickly Angeli was surrounded, and at this time, when Angeli saw how they were surrounding him, he didn't feel any fear at all. And if these people take fierce drugs in their daily lives, it proves that the insider must have a unique idea of his own, and it may not seem very peaceful on this mermaid island now. Before that, Angeli had always thought that some merman or new merman might appear on Mermaid Island, but no matter what, why did this group of new merman take the medicine? This kind of thinking is really difficult for Angeli, and Angeli has no idea why these people are like this. Is it because of their purpose? But when it happened, many people didn't know how to run the business, but when things were already formed like this and others didn't know what to say, Angeli already understood this group of people. What is the purpose of the mermaid? Angeli guessed that this group of people must have their own idea of wanting to keep gaining the upper hand on the Mermaid Island. Only in this way can they take medicine at all costs. Chapter 167 Wanton Ridicule. In fact, if they take fierce drugs, for them, although it will only temporarily improve their abilities, but they will also suffer a lot of negative attacks, not to mention causing certain damage to their bodies. But no matter what, since they can think like this, it proves that in their minds, there's something more important to accomplish than hurting your body. So when Angeli was facing these people in front of him, he really felt that he couldn't figure it out. These people kept surrounding him, and a Hody Jones suddenly came off the boat. Googly's eyes really became extremely fierce. Angeli knew that this Hody Jones Ken 990 must come to meet him, but this kind of welcome is different from the ordinary welcome, because Angeli has long been I already know that none of this group of people can really regard themselves as a good person, and each of them is full of hostility when they treat themselves. Angeli knows that this Hody Jones will definitely not let it go easily. Himself, when he jumped from the boat, Angeli already knew that this person must look like a leader in the whole body. But at this time, Angeli suddenly felt that when the people around him faced him, the original very fierce expressions seemed to change their expressions all at once. At this moment, Angeli looked at them. The expression is already known. These people have been looking at themselves with a very mocking expression. They thought that if they could really lead Angeli to this place, then Angeli would definitely be greatly reduced in strength. Because they know that in this seawater, there will be no people from other races who have arrived here, and they still maintain their strength as before. Because this seawater is a unique strength among their human race, many people will be in this place, losing their original strength, and in the process of fighting, they will greatly reduce one of their energy. Before that, the squid they had been hiding in the troop was actually just to lead him here quickly. When Angeli was led here by him, this group of people suddenly appeared. The cacti kept appearing around Angeli and surrounded him. They showed a kind of ridicule unique to the mermaid. They know that Angeli may become very powerless in the face of such a thing now, and Angeli may beg for mercy from them next, but no matter what Angeli faces in front of this group of new mermaids, there is no meaning to be afraid of fear. He just thinks that the next thing is just a little too ridiculous for him. However, at this moment, in fact, the group of cacti looked at Angeli's expression. They knew that Angeli had no fear at all. Maybe it was because Angeli felt that they were not very powerful characters at all. So they decided that they should go directly and make it clear to them. At this time, Hody Jones jumped in front of Angeli and said to Angeli, "Ha ha ha, how's it going?" Chapter 168 Manipulating the Seawater. Angeli, it's unexpected. Originally, that squid has already become our subordinate. He was able to quickly lead you to this place, but it was only under our order. We asked him to help you here. Do you know why you were brought here? Because if you can come to this place, it may prove that you have no greater strength at all. I just hope you can seriously think about such a problem. Next, let's not have any disputes with others because of this kind of thing. And I also think that although such a thing has already happened, if you ask me for mercy, I can still let you go, but you need to know now you have no ability at all, so begging for mercy is your only way. Hody Jones, the leader of the cactus, said this. At this time, when Hody Jones finished saying this, Angeli felt it was ridiculous, because Angeli didn't know why this group of people became such a confident look. They thought that Hody Jones was a very powerful figure, and they always felt that if Angeli really went into the sea, his strength would definitely be greatly reduced. But they don't know that this is just an idea of their own, and Angeli has not only not weakened in strength when he arrives in this sea, but he is becoming more and more fighting spirit now. At this time, Angeli felt that there should be some head-on conflict with them, otherwise, it would be completely meaningless to entangle here. At this time, Angeli carried out a work on them. Angeli unceremoniously used his sword to control the seawater. During the process of manipulating the seawater, the group of mermaids quickly escaped. Although it was said that the speed of the group of mermaids in the sea was very fast, Angeli saw their appearance also felt a little shocked because Angeli had already known from the very beginning that this group of mermaids were extremely fast in the sea, so such a thing would happen to them, and Angeli also don't feel embarrassed. Because he has already made a mental preparation, but now facing such a thing, Angeli feels a little powerless. Angeli kept using his sword moves, hoping to make them understand that the series of things he was doing now was a complete attack on them. But the speed of the mermaids in the water was simply too fast, and Angeli quickly avoided their attacks. At this time, Angeli kept using his sword moves because in fact, how did Angeli dodge them? I never thought that although they said that the speed in the water was very fast, they never thought it would become so fast. So Angeli also hoped that they would be able to see how powerful he was, but when he used it a few times. After the scene, after all the failures like this, I really felt as if I was a little powerless. In fact, Angeli has always hoped to let them understand what their strength is like, but in the water they quickly avoided some of their own sword moves. In the process of wanting to see the attack, Angeli always felt that he is actually a very powerful person. Chapter 169 Strangulation. And he doesn't feel that what he's doing now might be a very painful thing for them. But after these attacks failed, Angeli really felt that he was a little powerless, and he also hoped that he could make these people understand what he was doing now. Maybe at the beginning, he was faced with such a thing, maybe he didn't know how to do it, but Angeli still had some rivals in love. He knew the speed of the mermaid in the water. Very fast, and several of his sword moves have failed, then he must think of some other methods. At this time, Hody Jones saw that they have been entangled, and in the face of such a thing, Hody Jones really the only thing is to feel a little anxious, and Hody Jones knows, if it is to let them solve the battle quickly. Then he must continue to give these mermaids some fierce medicines. He knows that these fierce medicines may be a little ferocious to him, but no matter what, he only needs to be able to win the battle. So Hody Jones called the group of mermaids, and then showed off to each of them. At this time, when they finished taking the murderous drug, the whole person became so irritable. In fact, at the very beginning, this group of mermaids had already become violent, but when they took the fierce medicine again, they were almost insane this time, and Angeli was facing the group. Man, the fish really felt a little crazy. He didn't know why this group of mermaids became like this, when the mermaids kept strangling Angeli. Angeli has already felt the supply of these mermaids for him, and he doesn't understand why these mermaids treat him like this. It may also be because the mermaids became somewhat unable to control their tempers and moods after eating these fierce medicines. When they came to Angeli's side, they kept strangling. Angeli decided that they shouldn't continue to indulge them like this. If they don't fight back, maybe this group of mermaids will completely defeat themselves, so at this time, Angeli starts to fight back. At the very beginning in fact, Angeli had already decided that he should fight to the death with them, but he just thought that this group of poor mermaids would not have become like this if they hadn't taken the medicine. So Angeli still felt a little pitiful in the face of such a thing. He knew that this group of mermaids were actually very pitiful. If it wasn't for the fact that they took these traditional Chinese medicines, they might be ordinary mermaids now. But it is precisely because they took these ferocious drugs that they should not take, and now they have become a little less aware of themselves. Angeli knew that if they were inexplicably killed, or if they were already injured, then it might become very painful after the energy they needed passed. So in the beginning, Angeli actually didn't want to fight with them at all, but now that things have happened, many people don't know how to continue. Chapter 170 Good Words to Persuade. But Angeli has also figured out that if he continues to entangle with them, he may not end up in a good end in the end. Therefore, the desperate counter-kill began at this time. At this time, Angeli was in the process of counter-kill, and many people felt stunned. They didn't know why such a thing suddenly appeared in their eyes. These few mermaids who took the medicine were obviously not Angeli's opponents at all. When Angeli started to make moves, they were already a little helpless and couldn't stand it at all. At this time, when they continued to carry out when resisting, Angeli 06 also decided that they should not show mercy to them. When Angeli was prepared for such a mentality, he had already killed them quickly. At this time, they could not feel this kind of thing. How things should be handled. Gradually, one after another merman died in Angeli's hands. At this time, Angeli knew that even if this group of mermaids were killed, they might not know how they died until they died. Because they had already taken the murderous medicine, Angeli didn't want to continue to entangle with them too much during this time, after beheading all the mermaids. Angeli has put all his goals on Hody Jones, because he knows that these things are inseparable from Hody Jones. If it wasn't for Hody Jones, then those mermaids wouldn't be able to. He died so lightly because he blamed him for giving the group of mermaids a fierce medicine, and after the mermaids ate it and showed off, one of their own strengths might temporarily increase, but no matter what, in the end they will still die miserably. When Angeli put all his goals on Hody Jones, Shao Kahn also felt very scared. At this time, Hody Jones really felt that he was powerless. He knew when Angeli was facing him, he will definitely use all his energy. If he evades quickly at this time, then such a thing may be impossible at all, and Angeli will not let himself go at all now. When Hody Jones watched Angeli keep walking towards him and was about to use a trick, he began to give himself medicine violently. Because he knows that if he really takes a lot of these bras, his ability will become very powerful. By that time, Hody Jones and Angeli will probably have reached a balance. Or directly kill Angeli, but no matter what, this is just Hody Jones's true thoughts. But at this time, when Angeli saw him like this, he stopped, and then persuaded him to say, "Hody Jones, what are you doing? I see that the way you are taking medicine is really ridiculous. Don't you think that the medicine you are taking now is useless for you at all? If next, we always have integrity because of such problems. I think, this is simply a very worthwhile thing, not to mention in my mind I think if you really want to." Chapter 171 Cold-Eyed Resistance. If you really want to fight to the death with me, you might as well strengthen your strength. Only in this case, I think you are qualified to fight with me, not to mention what is this school made of. Don't you know it yourself? What I just want to tell you now is that if you continue to take medicine, it may be even worse for yourself. It just makes you die faster. Don't you understand such a thing? Angeli said this, because when Angeli said this, he didn't actually have any other thoughts, he just hoped to make Hody Jones understand what he meant by what he said now. But Hody Jones was still obsessed, because he felt that if he only got a murderous medicine, he could seriously fight with Angeli, otherwise he would definitely not be able to beat Angeli. Because from the moment Angeli landed on Mermaid Island, Hody Jones had noticed such a character, and he knew that this person must not be underestimated. And if you really want to fight with him next, then you have to take the medicine, which is the only way, and apart from such a thing, maybe no one knows how to communicate with him. So when Angeli finished saying these words, Hody Jones didn't want to hear him at all, but at this time Hody Jones insisted on taking the medicine. Because he understands that if he takes these medicines, then Hody Jones can directly defeat Angeli, because this is just a psychological idea of Hody Jones himself. At this time, after Hody Jones said these words, no one else knew how to continue to communicate, but Hody Jones still hoped that they could understand how to deal with such a thing. After Hody Jones took these medicines, his strength really increased greatly. At this time, he really reached a state of peak strength. He quickly put all his energy on Angeli. On the body. When Angeli saw Hody Jones in front of him, he knew that he had red eyes in his heart, but no matter what, he still hoped to make Hody Jones understand what he was doing now. In fact, he really did not want to be with him. He had a fight together. Because Angeli knew that Hody Jones was now taking the murderous drug, so although he said that his ability had reached a healthy state, but he was only temporary, and Angeli watched from the sidelines. He looked at Hody Jones in front of him, and suddenly felt that this Hody Jones was simply too ignorant, and he would not listen to what he said to him. So if this was the case, Li Zhao's column would also there really is no other way. This is that Angeli has already made a mental preparation. In the beginning, Angeli actually didn't want to fight Hody Jones because he knew that Hody Jones was not his opponent at all. If Hody Jones fought hard, then Hody Jones would definitely die very miserably in the end, and this time he mainly came to Mermaid Island. Chapter 172. The whole army was annihilated. His purpose is not to fight with these people at all. He came to Mermaid Island this time, he just needs to be able to find the whereabouts of Shirahoshi. Other things, he will not go to Shaoxing at all, but at this time things happen after that. Angeli had already understood what to do next. Hody Jones had taken traditional Chinese medicine, and he had been fighting Angeli all the time. At this time, Angeli had no other way. He can only struggle to fight several battles with Hody Jones. In the end, after a battle between Angeli and D. Jones, he finally subdued Hody Jones. At this time, Hody Jones was completely defeated, and Angeli was facing the food before him. 100 Hody Jones, who took the murderous medicine, didn't feel any sense of inferiority at all. From the beginning to the end, Angeli has always been in a state of superiority. After he defeated Hody Jones, he suddenly felt that his strength had greatly increased. And Angeli didn't want to kill Hody Jones at first, but because Hody Jones was too obsessed, in the end, Angeli also killed him. The huge squid, I heard that the group of Hody Jones and the others he had obeyed had already been killed by Angeli, so the squid at this time decided that they should run away quickly. One thing has long been a habit for Wu Thief, and he knows that there is absolutely no need to communicate with others when such a thing happens. And the most important thing at the moment is that 36 tricks are the best plan. This is when the squid started to escape, but it is impossible for Angeli to let him run away inexplicably. This is because Angeli blocked the squid all of a sudden, and then said to the squid, "You squid, I advise you not to continue doing this, because I know that what you are doing now is simply against the law of nature. And you have been making trouble on this mermaid island. Don't you think that when this happens, you should really admit your mistakes to others? What's more, now you want to run away when you hear such a rumor. Do you think the escape is really that simple?" Angeli said this. When people only knew what Angeli said, the squid stared at him with big eyes and slowly looked at Angeli. He knew what Angeli said now for him. Even if he didn't want to hear it, there was absolutely no other way. Because he has now been completely controlled by Angeli, and he knows how powerful Angeli is. Originally, in the process of running away inexplicably at the beginning, it was just to save Angwell. Gregory referred to this place. That's because in his misunderstanding, he always felt that this group of mermaids were very, very powerful after taking the poisonous medicine, and it was impossible for anyone to escape by their side, but now he never imagined that. It turns out that Angeli was able to quickly defeat the mermaid who took the fierce medicine. They were also shocked when this happened. Especially the squid, he was really convinced. Chapter 173 Princess Shirahoshi. Facing the angel in front of him, he really didn't dare to resist at all. At this time, Angeli forcibly brought him back to the forest of the sea. After returning to the forest of the sea, the squid saw King Neptune, and really felt that he had to admit it, because he felt that he was not as powerful as before. So when he sees King Neptune, he can only bow his head and admit his counsel. This is what he said to King Neptune. "King Neptune, I promise that I will not continue to make troubles in the future, and the previous things are all my fault. After I come down, I am willing to listen to your arrangements and obey your arrangements." When he heard the squid say this, King Neptune really felt very relieved. He felt that this Angeli really had some skills of his own. Otherwise, how could he subdue the squid so easily? What? And you must know that this squid has never obeyed anyone before this, even King Neptune, and he often makes trouble here. So when King Neptune saw the squid in front of him, he said this: "When I took an oath, I really felt that Angeli next to him was really incomparably powerful." At this time, the entire mermaid family and King Neptune were already shocked by Angeli's strength. Because he is so powerful, he has knocked down all the mermaids and Hody Jones who took the medicine, and beheaded them all. This kind of thing is a top-level thing for the entire mermaid tribe. At this time, the mermaid tribe began to spread rumors, because at the beginning they always knew that this kind of thing happened, but it actually had nothing to do with others. And they have already understood that although this Angeli is said to be very powerful in rumors, saying that he has a top-level ability one by one, many people do not believe it at all. And this time they really finally believed it. They knew that the rumors were not false, and that Anjali was able to appear in front of them, which was really a great honor for them. Princess Shirahoshi also heard such a rumor, and then he walked out of the palace inn. This Princess Shirahoshi looked very tall, but in fact he was just a very crying, timid mermaid princess. 0. Ask for flowers because this is completely different from what Anjali imagined before. Anjali thinks that Shirahoshi may be someone who makes him feel a little surprised. Oh, but he couldn't think of anything. It turns out that this Princess Shirahoshi looks so beautiful, and he looks so beautiful with blonde hair and blue eyes. This may be the most beautiful princess in the mermaid family. At this time, Anjali finally recalled why when he first went to the island, he wanted to ask King Neptune for Shirahoshi, but King Neptune was so rebellious. He even proposed to change his own life, so Anjali finally understood all this. It turns out that this Princess Shirahoshi is really the most precious existence on the Mermaid Island. At this time, Princess Shirahoshi also came to Anjali. Around. Chapter 174, 100 Years of Peace. Anjali's strength is truly well-deserved, which greatly shocked Neptune, and Neptune did not expect that Anjali's strength was far beyond his imagination. Neptune thought to himself, what did Anjali want to do when he came to Fishman Island? Did Anjali want to destroy the status quo of our Fishman Island? Fishman Island has always lived a peaceful life and is indifferent to the world. Today, Anjali came to Fishman Island inexplicably, and broke the original tranquility and peace here. Fishman clan living on Fishman Island were all very timid when they saw Anjali's invincible kung fu. At this moment, Anjali stood in front of Neptune with the frost snow sword in his hand. Anjali had asked that squid to apologize to Neptune just now, and promised that he would never come to harass Fishman Island again. After Neptune got the guarantee from the squid, he wasn't sure whether the squid would come to Fishman Island to make trouble after Anjali left. I must say that this squid is also very hateful. Fishman Island, harassing the mundane life of the Fishman tribe. The Fishman family also has no way to take this squid. Fortunately, Anjali appeared in time this time and repelled this hateful squid. Because Anjali was on Fishman Island, this squid would be so obedient. I can't imagine that this squid will come back after Anjali leaves. Neptune was thinking about this question repeatedly in his heart, looking at the squid in front of him. The more he looked, the more angry he became. Neptune secretly hated himself in his heart, only because he had limited ability to deal with this squid. It would be great if Neptune also had the upper-level martial arts like Anjali. Anjali's strength is really unmatched. No one can compare. Anjali's usual moves are also very many, not to mention other moves. Just talking about the move of 13 shakes is enough to destroy fish at this time. Princess Man walked out slowly, came to Anjali's side, and said to Anjali, "Are you the legendary angel? Seeing you today is really well-deserved. You are really amazing. You are the idol in my heart. Thank you for defeating the squid just now. We fools can get peace and peace. If you didn't show up in time, the consequences would be real unimaginable." Anjali looked down at this Fishman princess. This little princess is very cute, but her body is a little too big. The Fishman princess looks very timid, and Anjali thought to herself that it would be a good thing if she could accept him as an apprentice. To Anjali, to Princess Fishman. "Yes, I am Anjali in your mouth. You are a very cute princess, but you are very timid. Would you like to learn some of the best kung fu from me? You called my name just now, and now I don't know what your name is." "My name is Shirahoshi," Princess Fishman replied. Anjali thought the name was a good one. Shirahoshi continued. "If you want to accept me as a disciple, it is not impossible, but you must first take Fishman Island under the name, and then guarantee the safety of Fishman Island for 100 years. 30. If you agree to my request, I will agree to do it your apprentice." After Shirahoshi said these words, he quietly waited for Anjali to answer himself. Anjali thought in his heart, this little thing still knows how to make conditions with himself. Anjali looked at the cute little princess in front of him and said, "Okay, I agree to your conditions." Angry turned the little princess's body into the size of an ordinary person at this moment. Chapter 175 Budding. Shirahoshi was turned into the size of an ordinary person by Anjali, and suddenly changed his appearance. At this time, Shirahoshi was standing beside Neptune, and Neptune did not dare to recognize his daughter. Neptune looked at the beautiful and lovely girl in front of him. Is this still his huge fishman princess? It's really incredible. Anjali's ability is far bigger and broader than Neptune thought. Neptune thought to himself, today he has seen a real master, a real king. The Neptune standing in front of him really surprised him too much. It would be a good thing if his daughter could worship in Anjali's name. Although Neptune is very reluctant to his daughter in his heart, if his daughter follows Anjali 06, there will be advantages and disadvantages. As we all know, there are countless apprentices under Anjali's name. Everyone knows that as Anjali's apprentice, he has to withstand all tests, and Anjali is also very strict. But if you can become Anjali's apprentice, you can also learn a lot of upper-level martial arts. If your daughter becomes Anjali's apprentice, she can learn a lot of skills, learn a lot of tricks and become Shirahoshi who looks like an ordinary person. Standing in front of Anjali, Anjali was also very surprised, and there was a lot of surprise in his eyes. After this beautiful and lovely little princess became a human, she turned out to be so delicate. The fishmons of Fishman Island came to Shirahoshi one after another, watching Shirahoshi's new outfit and complimenting Shirahoshi's new look one after another. Princess Shirahoshi bowed her head shyly after hearing the praise from the fishman. Her face was red at this time. The red little danger makes Princess Shirahoshi even more beautiful, like a budding flower bone, which is very beautiful. When Neptune thought that his daughter was about to be taken away by Anjali, he really felt a lot of reluctance in his heart because his daughter was also spoiled by himself on his Fishman Island. Neptune thought that his daughter would suffer a lot in the future, because after all, he had to learn a lot of upper-level martial arts with Anjali. Since he wanted to learn martial arts, he would suffer a lot. At this time, Anjali could see how much I read Neptune's mind, just waiting for Neptune to speak. Just looked at Neptune and Princess Shirahoshi quietly, without saying a word, because Anjali was waiting for them to speak. Anjali thought in his heart, since he is the apprentice he wants to accept, no one can stop his thoughts. In fact, Neptune knew that it was useless no matter how much he could not bear his daughter. Since Anjali had taken a fancy to him, all Neptune could do now was to admit his fate, but Neptune also wanted to explain. Anjali, after all, Anjali led Princess Shirahoshi away. I really don't know when they will be able to meet. Neptune looked at Anjali and said to Anjali, my 153 daughter, Princess Shirahoshi is still so young. If he wants to learn martial arts with you, as your apprentice, he can't suffer too much. Which I hope you can understand. My daughter grew up under my care. I hope you can take good care of him for me, and even my daughter can't use a sword, nor will she know any tricks, Neptune said here later. Before Neptune could finish speaking, Anjali interrupted him. I know what you said, I can take good care of her, don't talk so much nonsense. After Anjali said these words, he took Princess Shirahoshi away. Chapter 176 With Emotion. Fishman Princess Shirahoshi of Fishman Island. After being taken away by Anjali, Fishman Island is extraordinarily quiet. Neptune sits on the stone bench every day. Secretly in a daze Neptune thinks in his heart, with my beloved daughter, Shirahoshi, when will I be able to return to my side, and how long will this parting be? Although I have all kinds of reluctance in my heart, I can't bear it, but there is no way, who will be favored by Anjali? Since Anjali is optimistic about his daughter being accepted as an apprentice, then no one can stop him. Neptune could only endure all this silently, the pain of being separated from his daughter, and now the pain of lovesickness, because he has never left Neptune's side since his daughter grew up so much. All of this is really cruel to Neptune. Without the company of his beloved daughter, Neptune's life is particularly boring, because his daughter is used to it. Here Zoro and Kuina came to the Cake Island. After the Cake Island was destroyed by his master Anjali, only these remnants of defeated soldiers were left. The reason why Zoro and Kuina came to the Cake Island is to explore the secret of the three eyes. The secret of the three eyes has not been revealed yet, and even his master Angeli does not know the origin of the three eyes. So today Kuina Zoro came to Cake Island and wanted to reveal the secret of the three eyes. At this time, there is only Charlotte Pudding on the Cake Island, and some defeated soldiers are guarding the Cake Island here. In the past, this Cake Island was still very magnificent and prosperous. After the last war, Angeli defeated Charlotte Pudding's father and destroyed everything on the Cake Island. Now this Cake Island has basically changed its face, but Kuina and Zoro have never seen this Cake Island after it was destroyed. This is the first time they have come here since the war. Cake Island. At this time, Kuina and Zoro are looking forward to coming to this Cake Island. Take a good look at what the current Cake Island has become. They can't imagine what it will look like. If you want to compete with Angeli, there will be no good end. In this world, there is no one who can defeat Angeli, and no one is Angeli's opponent. To fight against Angeli, it is simply a dead end, and there is no chance of survival. Zoro looked at the Cake Island in front of him and said to Kuina that since the last time the master destroyed everything on the Cake Island, I don't know what the Cake Island is now. I really look forward to seeing what was destroyed. What this Cake Island looks like. After Kuina heard these words from Zoro, she looked at the Cake Island in front and said to Kuina, "What is the scene of this Cake Island now? We don't know even our master. Since the war, he has not come to this island again, and our master does not want to come. It's just about the three-eyed clan, Nuo Jiao, and now everyone doesn't know about it. So let's find out about the three-eyed clan now, and we don't know how many people are still on the Cake Island. Charlotte Pudding is still here. Cake Island." After Kuina said these words, she looked at Zoro. Zoro said to Kuina that we won't talk so much, let's go to this island and see. At this time, Kuina and Zoro walked onto the Cake Island, and they were really emotional when they saw the scene on the Cake Island. Chapter 177, The Eerie Ruins. After Zoro and Kuina walked to the Cake Island, they were stunned by the scene of the Cake Island. The previous prosperity was gone, only the ruins were covered with weeds. At this time, the Cake Island it looks eerie, terrifying, like a hell where ghosts live. Both Zoro and Kuina's martial arts have been passed down by their masters, and it should be easy to deal with everything on Cake Island, but the scene at this time made them feel horrified. If it really comes out, the ferocious beasts Zoro and Kuina are not afraid, but the scene here looks particularly scary and strange. Maybe after the destruction, this place will become like this. Zoro looked at this strange scene, the gloomy ruins, and said to Kuina that the last teacher, Angeli, after coming to destroy this place, 770, this place has become very strange, very scary. The scene here used to be like this. It was a pity to think about it. What can the destroyed place look like now? It can only be the way it is now. This Cake Island. How many three-eyed tribes still live here? After listening to what Zoro said, Kuina looked at the surrounding scene and the gloomy ruins in front of her and said, "It looks very weird and gloomy here, but there is no way. We have to find out about the three-eyed race. As for how many three-eyed races there are here, no one knows, but I think there should be no more people. Charlotte Pudding has never left this Cake Island since the last time the master destroyed it. He has always stuck to this Cake Island here. I heard that Charlotte Pudding has never left this Cake Island. As long as Charlotte Pudding is still on this Cake Island, there is hope for us to find out about the three-eyed tribe, because only Charlotte Pudding knows the secrets of the three-eyed tribe, which is also Charlotte Pudding's pain point, but we also have to find him." After Kuina said these words, and Zoro continued to walk on the Cake Island, maybe they just arrived on the Cake Island, so they didn't see any three-eyed people appear. At this time, Kuina and Charlotte Pudding had to go inside the AGCG, Cake Island to find the three-eyed people here, and to know the news of Charlotte Pudding. Because if you want to know about the three eyes, you have to find Charlotte Pudding. If there is no Charlotte Pudding, this trip to Zoro and Kuina will be in vain. Now for Kuina and Zoro, the most important thing to do is to find the trace of Charlotte Pudding. Zoro and Kuina are walking, and there are two forks ahead. They should go to. Which way do you go? Zoro and Kuina stopped at this point. Zoro to Kuina _. There are 2 forks in front of Kuina. Let's analyze and analyze. Which direction should we go? The current terrain here is particularly dangerous and complicated, because by Jing's everything here has been destroyed by the master. The 2 of us can't walk blindly like this now. Once we get out of the way, we will go more and more and more and more. Kuina thinks what Zoro said. It makes perfect sense. At this moment, which way should Kuina and Zoro research go? At this time, a person appeared in front of them, and they just caught that person, and that person refused to tell Charlotte Pudding's whereabouts. There is a lot to eat here. Kuina and Zoro eat here. Chapter 178 The Secret of the Three-Eyed Clan. At this time, Zoro and Kuina are eating wantonly here. The food Zoro and Kuina eat is all the food of the Three-Eyed Clan on this cake island. The reason why Kuina and Zoro eat here is deliberately thinking enraged Charlotte Pudding so that Charlotte Pudding can be drawn out. Because Kuina and Zoro have no other way, they can only use this method to lead Charlotte Pudding out. As long as Charlotte Pudding can be brought out, Zoro and Kuina can do anything, not to mention eating. Eating is a strong point for Zoro and Kuina. This is what they are most willing to do. Just so happened that Kuina and Zoro also felt very hungry at this time, so they just ate more and more happily, and deliberately scourged the food, and some of them were thrown away before they were finished, everywhere. The person who was caught by Zoro and Kuina didn't dare to resist either, because he didn't dare to resist either. He saw Kuina and Zoro too. He was very afraid. After the last war, the remaining Three-Eyed Clansman knew how powerful Angry was. And his disciples are also very powerful. These few survived by chance, and it was Angeli who didn't kill them, so they survived. So at this time, they saw Angeli's 2 disciples, Kuina and Zoro. After they came to the Cake Island again, they were also very afraid, because they were afraid that Kuina and Zoro would level the Cake Island again. Seeing Zoro and Kuina eating like this, harming the food of the trio, Charlotte Pudding, who was hiding in the dark, finally couldn't bear it any longer, and rushed out with someone. Kuina and Zoro watched Shamingtae Pudding rush out and put down the food in their hands calmly. Zoro said to Kuina, "Charlotte Pudding, you finally came out, and you can't hold back anymore. If you don't come out, I will eat all your food. I don't think you can come out yet." Charlotte Pudding was very angry when she heard Zoro speak like this, and said to Zoro in a very angry tone, "If you have anything, come to me, don't waste the food of our Three-Eyed Clan. These grains are our Three-Eyed Clan's food for several months. If you ruined it, after the Second War, your master Angeli, since he has let us go, why did you come to the Cake Island this time to make trouble and destroy us? We have nothing here. Now, what are you doing here? If you are here to continue to step down here, then do it, but please don't waste our food, which is very precious to us. 0. Ask for flowers." After Zoro heard these words from Pudding, there was a contemptuous look in his eyes and a weird smile in the corner of his mouth. Zoro to Charlotte Pudding. "I don't want Kuina and I to waste your food. I will ask your question later. If you answer me truthfully, then we will stop wasting your food. If you don't answer truthfully, don't blame us." "You're welcome," Charlotte Pudding said to Zoro after listening to what Zoro said. "Okay, I agree to your conditions. If you have any questions, just say it and see if I can answer you. If I know, I will definitely answer your question." Zoro looked at Charlotte Pudding and said, "Then tell me about the Three-Eyed Clan now. If all you say is practice, I will stop wasting your food immediately. If you don't answer my question honestly, don't blame me for being rude." Charlotte Pudding was furious when she heard Zoro's question, because this question was her own pain point and she didn't want to mention it to outsiders. At this time, Charlotte Pudding slapped Zoro angrily. Chapter 179 Zoro is pulled away. Zoro was politely slapped like this for no reason at all. He was a little angry. When he was about to go up to reason with Pudding, suddenly Kuina came over, gently pulled Zoro, and lowered his voice in his ear. "Things seem a little strange. We'd better not act rashly." Zoro stared at Kuina with wide eyes. Did you make a mistake? Originally, we should all be good at 750. No one was recruited and no one was offended. I was given such a slap for no reason. How do you make me think about this tone? And people say that hitting people is not slapping in the face, don't they? Haven't you heard of it? Kuina looked at Zoro helplessly. I told you not to act rashly, you'd better listen to me. Of course, you can also not listen, but soon there will be more suffering waiting for you to eat. Then it's not a matter of letting people fight. After speaking, he smiled at Pudding. I'm really sorry, my buddy's head doesn't seem to be normal. It wasn't like this before, but since I got close to your island, it seems to have started to change. It's getting worse and worse. You must not know him in general. Pudding originally slapped Zoro, and his anger subsided a little, but when he saw Kuina come out to apologize to himself, he didn't know what was wrong, and suddenly felt uncomfortable in the shower. So he snorted coldly. No matter where you came from, or why you came here, I don't welcome you on this island, so in order to avoid more unpleasant things from happening, I think you should go. Kuina also looked at Pudding in disbelief. She thought she apologized to others, at least I could stay, but I didn't expect that Pudding was a girl who didn't eat hard and had to drive herself away. Zoro couldn't hold his breath anymore. He pushed Kuina aside and looked at Pudding coldly. What if I said no? Let me tell you, there seems to be no one in this world who can slap me in the face. I have the impression that you are the first one. I will never allow you to pay any price, so I just walked away like this. At least you have to let me to give you a little color to see, let you know I'm not easy to bully. As for the rest, it depends on your performance. If you perform better, maybe we can let go of the past, but if you are still obsessed, if you must drive us away from this island, then really don't blame me. You're welcome, but you want to continue talking. Kuina covered Zoro's mouth. You still think this is not messy enough, do you? If you really want to solve the problem, you'd better go with me, Zero. As the saying goes, there are green hills left, and I'm not afraid that there will be no firewood. I don't believe that this island can still stop us both. Zoro suddenly realized, looked at Kuina and nodded silently. You are still smart. Kuina snorted arrogantly. You are too stupid. 13 I told you just now not to conflict with others, but you are not willing to listen. Saying that, he waved to Pudding again, and pulled Zoro away from here. Pudding watched them leave coldly, then turned around and went back. At night, a man and a woman suddenly appeared on the dark island. The two figures were none other than Kuina and Zoro, who had left during the day. Chapter 180, Hidden on the Island. At this moment, there was silence all over the place. The residents of the island had already fallen asleep, and in addition to the sound of the waves, there were several unknown seabirds chirping in the sky from time to time. The name of a cricket was blown by the sea breeze. Zoro and Kuina took a deep breath. Kuina said comfortably, I really have the opportunity to live on this island for a while, it seems to be quite beautiful. Zoro snorted angrily. Oh 6, do you remember Pudding's virtue during the day? I think she wouldn't let you live here anyway. So it's better for you to dismiss this idea as soon as possible. If you don't drive her off the island and take it for yourself, there might be a chance, but I doubt you'll be able to beat Pudding. Kuina shook her head gently. When will you be able to use your brain and use less hands? Do you know that people with brains in this world live easier than those with your brains? The reason why you suffered such a big loss is because Zoro was too brainless to say what Kuina said. After being silent for a while, he finally couldn't help but say, anyway, this is your idea, now we have finally landed, and it seems that we have not been discovered by the residents of this island. What should we do next? Kuina was silent for a while, watching Zoro suddenly smile. We can accompany the residents of the island, so that it will not be too noticeable. Zoro snorted coldly. Even if we land on the island like this, I'm afraid it won't attract people's attention. You can see the darkness around you. No one can see us. Kuina rolled his eyes. Be careful sailing the ship for 10,000 years. Do you know that the more we are at this time, the more careful you are, the more you have to be careful. You have already been chased away during the day, but now you come uninvited. If someone finds out, how embarrassing would it be? Zoro was helpless, so he had to follow Kuina's plan and put some clothes on the island's residents and put them on his body. The two looked at each other and were very satisfied with each other's images. Pudding said with a smile, "This way, you won't be afraid of being discovered by others." Zoro didn't think so, but it's not easy to refute Pudding. "I think it's better to find that Pudding, this person is really strange." Kuina nodded, and under the cover of night, the two sneaked up on Pudding under the window. Hearing that Pudding was having a meeting with his subordinates, Zoro was overjoyed and knew what happened this time, so he gave a wink like Kuina and Kuina made a silent gesture. The two of them turned their ears 470 to listen together. "I just heard Pudding coughing softly. Auntie died so unexplainably. To be honest, I really feel a little wronged. As his good friends, we must not just let it go. What do you say?" "Manage." Those subordinates immediately chatted with each other. "What else can I do?" Of course, it is to avenge the ant's hatred. Otherwise, it would be difficult for the ant to hide her purpose under Juquan. Pudding snorted coldly. "It's easy to say, but no one of you can come up with an effective plan. Can any of you beat the person who killed Big Mom?"